Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast where we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
John, I'm going to do the rest of this podcast not as myself, but as Barlow from this miniseries. So I would like to address the audience first.
Apologies to those of you who wear headphones listening to this show, because that was right in your ears. Yeah,
that's a direct quote, ladies and gentlemen.
That's classic Barlow right there.
That's the stuff that he's known for. That's pure Barlow gold.
Since you brought that up, let's start here. We talked about part one of Salem's Lot last week, and we're going to finish it up here. But this one has way more Barlow. How do you feel about this take on Barlow? Because it is radically different than the novels Barlow.
Well, that's the thing. This is where you and we talk about these kinds of things a lot when we talk about adaptations, when we're talking about comic book adaptation in film or whatever.
Yeah.
If you separate the two, I think this is very effective for a TV movie of the 1970s. It's a startling thing, and actually, it holds up. But if you're talking about that book, which in the case of this, as I was a youngster, I had not read the novel first.
Right. I'm certain I saw this before I read the book as well.
Reading the book, that is a completely different take. Reading the book, that is Stephen King doing Dracula. He wanted Barlow to be European and intelligent, and he is a speaking villain. It's a great character, and Straker's part is much different, also very reduced. This flips it. I love book Barlow, but for TV movie Barlow, I'll take it.
I'm in a similar camp there, where it's like within the script and logic and story of this, I'm totally okay with this. However, now that we hear that they're making this new Salem's Lot movie, I want book Barlow to be in that movie.
Well, you were just telling me about the casting of Ben Mears, which I had not been kept up to date on.
Yeah.
So have they announced anyone for Barlow, or are they going to keep that a secret?
They have not. They announced the other week that William Sadler has joined the cast, and they won't say who he's playing. So there's some speculation he might be Barlow, although there's still several more parts to cast. Sadler would be an interesting choice.
He would be, and that guy's bone structure, even as a somewhat younger man, is very skeletal. And I mean, come on, they played that up in Bill and Ted, by making him play Death.
He's so amazing as the Grim Reaper.
He's
in
fucking
the Bill
hilarious.
And Ted franchise.
But
he's having. I mean, I just look at like his IMDb photo, and I'm going like, there is something haunting about his whole vibe.
Yeah. So honestly, if he played either Straker or Barlow, I could see that being a very good fit.
They have cast Straker.
Oh, they have.
Yeah.
Oh, who's Straker?
It's a guy whose name is Hoboy. Pilu,
wow, that's a weird name. Hoboy.
Pilu Asbæk. He's a Danish actor. He played Euron Greyjoy on Game of Thrones.
Oh.
He's for those who can look him up, I'll show him to you there, Brendan. That's what the actor looks like.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who's like, oh, I've seen this guy, and then right, he's because they've cast most of the parts, but Sadler they just haven't said who he's playing. So everybody's kind of. They've also made Dr. Cody a woman in this, and Alfre Woodard is playing Dr. Cody.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what she's gonna do with that. So,
sorry everyone listening to the podcast where, I mean, actually this is connected. This ties in, and I look forward to a new adaptation. I think this, for what we had at the time, not to do a wrap up before we even get in there, but for the time, this is great. This is really good.
Really solid.
Even though we'll talk about how part 2 is structured, because God, does this thing just
I agree about. I think we're on the same page there about part 2, which is I still like it, but it does start to feel like, oh, we got to get to the end of this thing.
Someone literally started the engine, put
Yeah.
someone in the driver's seat, but then they did the thing where they dropped a cinder block on the accelerator and they just stood back.
Well,
Because holy
it's
hell,
so
it just goes.
interesting because last week we were really commending part 1 for committing to the slow burn, but it almost seems like part 2 is what the movie has to pay for doing that slow burn, where it's like, and now we just gotta get through everything right now. Let's go.
It is unbelievable how they go from mysterious fainting spells and illness to absolute belief in vampires and a plan to destroy them.
And there's a lot of stuff
about 6 minutes.
There's a lot of stuff in part 2 where, and I forgive it because it probably needed a third part realistically.
Yes,
that would have really helped if this had been a 3-act thing and been able to, because watching it and being a fan of the novel, I am going like, oh, so many of the connective pieces that like everything that's here is the novel, but you're missing like what leads from this to this or this to, it's like now we are just sort of playing greatest hits of the book, just scene after scene after scene down the stretch here. And it's just going like, ooh, that really lessens the impact of a lot of this. And if you haven't read the book,
there's just not enough time for, I mean, even if the book isn't, foremost in your mind, it's just amazing how these actors are requested or made to jump their characters with no organic bridging material from one aspect to another, from disbelief to grudging, I'm open-minded to it, to oh my god. And it's you don't have any breathing room as these characters to go, I can't believe this. I'm now believing this is possibly a supernatural event. It's just within an afternoon, suddenly everyone is leaving town.
The other thing,
they really did need a little bit more breathing room for characters and plot.
And also, I think just because of that and because of budget and it being a TV thing, you don't quite get the impact of the end of the book in this thing. Of the idea that this town has just been completely destroyed. There is no.
The dialogue is right out of the book, and it's good stuff, and it's sold well. About it's like, it's like we're going to clean the earth. We're going to scour Salem's Lot from the map, but yes, it is not as impactful because it's just like, well, there's that burning house.
Yeah, the eeriness of the end of the book, of the idea that this town has just been wiped off the map by the events of this story, is so much of how I think of the feeling and the vibe of Salem's Lot down the stretch. That and they just I don't think could do that. It would require a budget, and they weren't going to empty whatever this California town they shot in was, whatever it was.
John, if I'm hearing you right, are you suggesting to our listeners that they read the book Salem's Lot?
I still think that's my number one way to invest in this story. I would still say that the book is really is still brilliant.
The book is the thing. Yeah. It is the thing, and it's great, and it still holds up.
This
for something written in 1972 or whatever.
Yeah, this is great. I do always have the caveats though, right? It's like, it is great for a late 70s 2-part TV movie. It is fucking amazing for
amazing that they got away with a lot of it too.
They did. Although I will say in part 2 there is parts where I'm going like, okay, now I am really feeling where we've sanitized parts of this thing with some of the deaths. And I am starting to go like, okay, there is no blood in this movie. And, and I'm not even talking about I'm looking for gore here, but you're just going like, wow, for a vampire movie, this is bloodless. Like, there's just nothing.
Yeah.
And that's once again, I'm not like raging about that because I know it is TV of the 70s, but these are all caveats where I'm going, for what it is, this is this is up there with Night Stalker.
Yes.
Although
I would also say,
still like Night Stalker more.
Compared to what we've been watching over this season of our podcast, what amazes me about it is it's a TV movie, Night Stalker, it's a classic that I don't need to defend or whatever.
No.
It's just amazing. But compared to almost all the vampire films we've seen from the 70s, with some standouts, I mean, there's some that we've really enjoyed, but holy hell, this thing is probably, thanks to the source material and a good adaptation of some degree of the writer and obviously the director.
Yeah.
This is better than most of the theatrical stuff we've seen from the same decade, as far as a vampire film goes.
Unquestionably.
Yeah.
This, like, it's interesting how for all the stuff I'm bringing up, it really doesn't feel that TV in comparison to the stuff. And so much of it is that the thing Tobe Hooper, all the stuff I just brought up as a negative, the thing he nails is this eerie vibe. It is creepy, and it still is. Even watching it in modern day, there is still a chilling aspect to this that I really put on his directing specifically.
Yeah.
It is so well realized. The small moments of fear, it's, because you can't do the gory, intense stuff like that, but you can do these moments which we talked about last week of these vampires scratching at the window and coming out of the mist.
The thing with the when Barlow is getting taken care of, and just slowly in the background behind, our friend Mark, where you see the other vampires creeping up out of the shadow.
Yeah.
And for half a second, I wasn't sure I was actually seeing it, and I'm like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then you're like, yeah, and that's just off to the side. You're not, and then they're just coming up.
One of the most unsettling moments in all of these is in this part, and it's Jeffrey Lewis in that rocking chair. And you're just like, holy shit, this is terrifying. And it's actually a good lesson, I feel like, compared to stuff today, which is so jump scare heavy.
Right.
To see something like that, which is so much more upsetting to me than any
the
of
only
the
jump scare
movies
in this entire thing. Well, okay, maybe there's another one. But the only jump scare in this entire TV movie is Ned jumping out from behind that door to beat the shit out.
That legitimately startled me.
Yeah,
more in a like,
because he's suddenly just there and he's like, boom.
Yeah. There were a couple of attempted jump scares in part one. There's the grabbing of Fred Willard.
Yes.
And there's also where the younger Glick boy runs into Straker in the woods. But for the most part, none of those land. It really is the just out of nowhere a guy shows up more than anything, because that's not what I was expecting. That really did take me by surprise. By the way, was that probably a legal note, right? His name is Floyd Tebbets in the book. I don't know why it's Ned Tebbets in this.
That is interesting. You're right. But why would that be a legal thing?
I mean, I know that clearing names on TV is a thing. Sometimes they're worried people with that name will sue. I don't quite understand how the clearing of names works exactly, but I know that is a thing where you have to clear names.
Wow. So there was a real or fictional character named Floyd Tebbets already. They were like, well, we don't want to mess with those people.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know what the last name of Floyd the Barber on the Andy Griffith Show was. If it was Tebbets, then
are you
definitely.
Sure? Are you sure it wasn't the Barber? Floyd the Barber.
Well, I was going to go into being a butcher, and then I realized that's I'm missing my calling. My last name is the Barber, and I thought maybe I should cut some hair.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the 2004 version, he's back to Floyd, and according to IMDb of this next version they're filming now, he's Floyd again. So I don't know. That's something about this. I just found that. Yeah, I always find. Well, then
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. We can turn it off now. Guys, don't watch this piece of shit. If they don't have the courage to name that side character his actual name from the book, just shut it down.
I'm just
no reason to watch it.
I know both you and I are always curious about small, seemingly arbitrary changes.
Yes.
And there's always
especially when it just
there's
seems
probably
that
a
arbitrary.
dumb studio reason for that is usually what that is, or something like that, where it's just
what if there's one of the executive producers' name is Floyd and is like, I don't want to be associated with that in any way.
No.
Floyd is a proud
Well,
name. It's a proud family name.
We talked about that way back in our Frankenstein episode when they changed it from Victor to Henry Frankenstein because they didn't feel Victor was a trustworthy name or something like that. Audiences, they're not going to get on board with a guy named Victor, which is interesting for a character I don't know that is supposed to be trustworthy or you're supposed to get on board with for the movie necessarily.
That is just the dumbest thing ever in the world.
Something we didn't talk about last week is this. I don't know if this came at the time or if this was like a later home video thing, but I do know this poster or at least video cover that's on the IMDb I remember from having the DVD as a kid. And it's a really effective, pretty good for once again, for a TV thing, poster-ish thing, which is this sort of outline shape of Barlow with his arms up. Yeah. And his glowing white eyes.
It's a classic, it's a classic design. It's a classic vampire pose. And it looks really good because the shadow, or his body, which is, of course, just the black shape, they've turned into like a cutaway where you're then seeing the landscape of the house with the moon.
Yeah. And it promises the ultimate in terror.
Oh, your mileage may vary, but there is some terror.
But by the way, there are several taglines for this that I did not go through last week, and I'll give you.
Hit me with them.
The ultimate in terror. Then we have the ones that, of course, are calling out from the book, right? Iconic terror from the #1 best-selling writer.
Yes.
A masterpiece.
Always promote the writer.
A masterpiece of horror by the author of Carrie and The Shining.
Damn.
I like Do You Believe in Vampires? That's pretty good. That's not bad.
The entire audience rises up as one and goes, no. Okay, just asking.
Salem's Lot, ... where no one rests in peace. I like that one. That one's pretty good.
Yeah, that's good.
The town was ripped apart by a terrifying battle of good against evil.
Yeah.
And then finally, the longest
None of these are off the mark. Really?
No, these are all pretty good. And I think this one is not bad either. Someone is killing the people of Salem's Lot. The one man they mistrust is their only hope for survival.
That is long-winded.
Yeah. But still not inaccurate.
It's good.
Yeah.
No, it is not inaccurate.
We still, and a lot of that pays off in the second part of just fancy big city writer thinks he knows what's going on here.
Good job, TV department of publicity.
Yeah.
I think those are all pretty darn good.
Well, all of these feel like something that would have been in a TV guide, promotional thing, right?
You know what sold me on it as a 10-year-old? Vampires. They didn't need to say anything. Didn't need to. I was there.
Here's the thing: whether we were children or as adults now, Brendan, you and I are both pretty much sold on vampires.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Are there vampires in this thing? Yes. I'll take one, please. No, don't tell me anymore. You had me at vampires.
You had me at vampires is a line that was cut from Jerry Maguire.
It didn't test well, is what I heard. Yeah, Crow said, "I don't." You know what? In retrospect, I don't know what I was thinking. There was a whole thing about Jerry being a monster movie fanatic, and they just didn't work.
The layout of his apartment I made to look exactly like Mark's from Salem's Lot.
Have you ever seen Salem's Lot?
He had a bunch of model kits.
To me, Jerry Maguire was always the story of an adult Mark from Salem's Lot. Really, was kind of. He grew up to become a self-centered sports agent.
Yeah. Show me the money.
Yeah. Jerry Maguire, great movie.
It is. I haven't watched it in a million years, but I thoroughly enjoy it.
I watched it, maybe about a year ago or so when I was going through all of Cameron Crowe's movies. And the thing about it is, it held up really well. And it's one of those movies that has so many ubiquitous pop culture quotes and stuff. And and I go in thinking, well, I'll probably end up rolling my eyes. It's but God damn it, they all work in the context of the film. Show Me the Money is a great scene. You Had Me at Hello actually hit me, even though it's so oft referenced, but you're going like, God damn it, this is good writing and acting here. It really works.
It is about when you put things back in context. Did they work then?
Yeah.
Then they should work now in context.
You're
The
going
fact
like-
that they became ubiquitous
Yeah.
doesn't steal their power.
No, if anything, I watched that movie and go like, oh yeah, it deserved to become iconic. This is solid stuff.
And I hate sports. And I love that movie.
It is amazing how many sports movies I enjoy, because if you're a good enough filmmaker and storyteller, you can get me invested in characters, or if they're fighting vampires like this, where I'm more open to being invested in what they're up to. Anyway,
Yeah.
back into the movie here, part 2, or technically the
Back
tail end.
to Salem's Lot.
Yeah. Previously on Salem's Lot. No,
Where
of course,
did we leave off?
we left off with my mistake about where the end of part 1 was.
You're right.
Although once again, I cut it off about five or 6 minutes before the actual.
And then you did see the scene. It was like, right, the Jeep coming back into the town with the
Yeah.
sign. That's
Well, and-
obviously the start.
It's obviously the start, and actually the cliffhanger ending is also very obvious, because they do a very shoddy done in post push in.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing I hate more than a non-camera push in, and they've just done it in post and enlarged the frame. That never looks right, and always looks TV to me.
Man, you were just such an angry person. It's amazing.
Well, that's a lot of
your rage. I'm going to say this. Your rage is going to eat you up, John.
Yeah,
there'll be nothing left.
I've been told this by many people. It reminds me a lot of what I saw over on the Green Mile with the Incredible Hulk. Those kind of effects like that.
Yes.
Which was contemporary to this. So that show was running at this
that
time.
kind of thing was TV.
It's
at
in
the
a lot
time.
of stuff.
I mean,
too,
it really
yeah.
was.
I mean, even Columbo, my beloved Columbo, was guilty of that at times.
Yes.
You know, even though I do think Columbo was a cut above. Those were better directed than most of the shit that was.
I love the fact that every time you say that, your cat's going, yes?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, huh?
Yeah, he is looking
I
at me.
also believe I'm a cut above.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah. I mean, that cat is an indication of how much I love that show and that character.
Yes, indeed.
So we start here at the tail end of part 1 with Ben meets Susan at a diner, and she says she's got to go to Boston for a job interview. And she says, will you come with me to Boston for this job interview? And because Ben Mears is just such a dark dude who's consumed by this, he goes, no, I'd rather go to this kid's funeral than go with my hot girlfriend to Boston.
Yeah,
I just
again,
gotta
weird
go.
dialogue choice also of him saying, I'd rather go to this kid's funeral than go with my hot girlfriend.
Look,
I was like, wow, that's weird dialogue.
Ben Mears is the hero of the story, but I can't understand why he wouldn't just be like, how about young Bonnie Bedelia and I go to Boston and never come back to this town? Good luck, folks with the vampires.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That would have worked out maybe better for all of them.
Yeah, I mean, that just would...
But who would have stopped Barlow?
Maybe somebody. I don't know. Not my problem.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm in Boston with young Bonnie Bedelia. Everything's going great.
Boston with Bonnie Bedelia.
Yeah.
Who says no to that?
Yeah. So she goes off. He does go to the funeral. We see the Glick mother, I can't remember what her name is, faint at the funeral.
To tell you the truth, the pairs of parents, because you don't spend a lot of time with them. Every now and then I had to remind myself, wait, which parent group is this?
It is Marjorie.
Which one is this that's passing out?
Marjorie
out in the
Glick.
kitchen?
Marjorie Glick is the one who passes out. I'm looking
Marjorie,
at, and this is Clarissa K. Mason. Wait a minute now. Hold on.
I know where your brain's going.
She was indeed married to James Mason.
Really?
James Mason.
There is something of an age gap there.
There's a bit of an age gap there, yes. They were.
I really will enjoy playing Straker. Even more so, did I enjoy having my wife nearby, so I could make sure she wasn't making goo-goo eyes at anyone while I was on location filming this televisual production.
He was 22 years her senior. And
Get it, James, or Jimmy, as I like to call him.
They had married in 1971, and as this points out, they starred in this together, though they are never on screen together. Oh, wait a minute. I missed her. We missed her because apparently she did share scenes with him in Frankenstein: The True Story. I don't remember what part she played in that. Let me just quickly look here and see. Yes,
I bet it was something like in the party scene, like where they were at the
Lady
dance or something.
Fanshawe. That could have been anybody.
Could have been anybody.
Yeah.
Could have been me. I don't even remember my own work in that film.
She's from Sydney, Australia, this woman. They were married.
I did detect that she was trying to cover up an accent. She doesn't have a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
But when it's there, I'm like, what? She seems to not be from Maine. There seems to be some kind of thing.
Was married to James Mason until his death in 1984.
Well, she didn't have long to wait.
And 1971, 1984, his death is when and she never remarried.
Oh, yeah. That's actually very touching.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was wonderful love.
It does seem like, I like that most of her IMDb photos are her getting burned by the cross in the morgue in this movie.
That's a good scene.
It's a great scene, but I just like the idea of like, that's really it though, for pictures of her.
This is her legacy.
When David Soul burned her forehead with a cross in Salem's Lot. Anyway, she faints at the funeral, and at the exact moment she faints, dark clouds roll in. Evil is upon us.
Mm-hmm.
That one's a little on the nose. That felt a little TV to me, that dark cloud rolling in.
Every time they cut to the moon, and that includes the ending of this particular
I would
program.
say especially the ending of this, which
I do not those like are the weakest, dumbest things that happen in something directed by a very good director.
Yes.
Because every time they cut to the full moon, which also it seems to be the moon is full for an entire month.
Well, and also, what does it have to do with anything? This isn't a werewolf thing.
Well, we also get a wolf howl every time, and I'm like, we are in Maine.
We are in Maine. This isn't a werewolf movie. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I hated that.
That all feels very network note kind of stuff. Like, it doesn't feel. I can't imagine Toby Hooper was thrilled to put this stuff in here, or that these were his ideas.
No, when it came to the very end of it, I was like going, I just don't see Toby Hooper saying, and then zoom in on full moon and superimpose a skull on it. I just can't see that being him decision.
I laughed so hard at that because I'm just going like, oh my God. It's just like this thing is so good, but it's like network TV going, no, we just got to let you know it's a network TV production though.
Oh God! That really was.
All of a sudden, we're on Dark Shadows, or something like that.
Yeah, I know. Even people over at Kolchak the Night Stalker were going, "Oh, that's too much."
Yeah, isn't that Darren McGavin's going? Isn't that a bit cheesy?
Yeah, isn't that a bit cheesy? Hey,
we're above that over here at Kolchak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then after the funeral has wrapped up, we have our buddy Jeffrey Lewis playing Mike Ryerson here. And he arrives to bury this coffin, but the wind starts to pick up as he's doing this, which we saw before with when the younger Glick boy was out in the woods.
Yeah.
And
that denotes that perhaps evil is afoot.
Yeah. Then we cut away briefly to Ben and Jason Burke, Lou Ayres, having a discussion about Susan potentially taking a job, which is totally just filler to then cut back to Jeffrey Lewis being in the grave. Like,
it doesn't add much.
No, because it's just him going, well, what do you think if she took this job? He's like, well, I'd be very happy for her, but I'd have to think about what I'm doing with my life. Cut back to the grave. It's going like, wow, okay, that's just a transitional moment here, because now he's in the grave. And he feels compelled to open the coffin.
Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, okay. Again, this is no masterpiece, but I appreciate vampire movies where, I mean, there's going to be a scene I'll talk about later that we'll get to that I'm like, God, that's awful. That is just clunky. But here, what I do like about it is when we get things like people being hypnotized or compelled.
Yeah.
Or when fog rolls in at the windows and things like that.
Great stuff.
No one is explaining it. No one feels the need to set up what vampires can do. It's just, you're like, and that's very much like Stephen King's writing too. He doesn't really hit you with expository, here's my explanation of what's going on. So I do like the fact that you're just watching strange behaviors that, come over somebody. And again, Jeffrey Lewis is a great actor to be having do this stuff where he just goes dead faced and
it's once we get into all this hypnotized and later the vampire stuff, you're like, oh yeah, this is why you hired Jeffrey Lewis. Because and it's a great horror movie moment because he jumps into the grave, he goes to start opening the coffin, and you as an audience going like, no, what are you doing? Don't do that.
What are you doing?
Oh no!
And then that kid, he pops right up.
The simple effect, once again, you talk about, they don't have a lot of money, but they're very simple. The ashen pallor of the faces and the glowing dots in the eyes. That's good stuff.
Which are really well done for TV.
Really well
for TV
done.
movie of the 70s. Everyone that pops open their peepers and they have the little glowing irises, pupils. That's really well done.
It looks
well great.
Done. And it's a very simple and effective thing that's like, oh shit, that's a supernatural creature. Like everything's wrong with what I'm seeing, which is great. And then they go pretty hard at the gray skin, but I think it works.
I think it works. It works well enough for me to look at that and go, why do so many modern vampire movies suck? I mean, when it comes to that kind of thing, why is there no appreciation of these simple effects that give this otherworldly, creature?
That's it exactly. I watch as an audience and go like, no, this is inhuman. Something's wrong. Like everything about this is wrong. It's the same thing with the ineffective. I mean, surprise, surprise. Anybody who knows me John's gonna bring up Star Trek, but. The skin pallor they put on the Borg is similarly disturbing, where it's just a notch not human. It's still pretty human, but it's like, now something's wrong. I don't like looking at this.
Well, it's also there obviously people, you can interpret these supernatural creatures in so many different ways, but as much as I loved it and still do, regardless of troublesome behind the scenes stuff, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, one of the things I never liked about it was that decision that vampires look absolutely normal, and then when they vamp out, you get the whole Klingon forehead thing, and I'm like, all right, I mean, it's an effective thing, I guess, but for me, I would sit there and go, guys, just Salem's Lot these motherfuckers. Just Salem's Lot them.
Oh, I actually always really liked that on Buffy, actually, in that case.
In his mythology, it's the bodies of the dead are basically inhabited by demons.
Right.
And so when they vamp out, that's like their demon selves coming to the fore, and it changes their look. But that's totally a him creation. That's no one before had really said, well, they physically alter when they decide to
and
drink
I think
blood.
I talked about liking this. It's a little bit like Christopher Lee when his eyes would go blood red. And he goes, and all of a sudden the like animalistic side of the monster comes out, which I also like. Where it's like, I'm a composed gentleman. Oh shit, blood! Ah, like that's right.
That little soundbite right there, I think will be your new ringtone.
It will. Oh shit!
I'm a composed gentleman. Oh shit, blood! Ah!
But I kind of like that idea where it's like because that adds to that addiction kind of thing where it's like, I gotta get it now.
Them losing all chill is a way to do it.
Yeah.
But it's just not as creepy as a gray-skinned dude sitting in a rocking chair saying, hi, teacher.
I agree.
Look at me, teacher.
I do agree it is creepier to do it this way.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Because, that Jeffrey, that fuck, I mean, honestly, more than Barlow, that haunts me now. It's really creepy. And the design of Barlow was very much the thing I retained from seeing this as a kid. Like, in my head. I mean, he is such a inhuman, and
and he's only used as a pop-up. I mean, every single time he shows up, it's not the long, lingering shot of him. It's always a quick cut to this.
And, I mean, and it's very obviously reminiscent of Nosferatu, right?
Right.
Which I don't think I'd probably seen by the time. I'd seen images of it though, just being a monster fan.
I'd only seen it in things like Famous Monsters magazine.
But also,
and that sort of thing.
it reminds me of I can't remember what his name is, but the oldest vampire in the movie of What We Do in the Shadows has a very Barlow kind of look. The guy they keep in the basement.
It's not. What is it? It's not the sire.
No. He just has a regular name in the movie. The guy who's down in the basement.
Oh, in the movie,
I'm talking about in the
right.
movie. In the movie has the sire guy on the show has a even more advanced look, but the guy in the movie definitely has a Barlow type look, and his name is just like George or something like that.
He's in the basement.
Yeah.
And,
Our friend just died in a tragic sunlight accident. Give us some space. It's so funny. Such a great, legitimately one of my favorite vampire movies. I love that movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he opens up the coffin, and this kid sits right up and just chomps down on some Jeffrey Lewis, and that's where they do that terrible fake rack zoom, and and then that's where it goes to.
It's so fun to track commercial breaks in this too. It's like, oh, why is the screen suddenly going dark?
Well, because it does so feel like a movie as you're watching it that you're like, oh right, it's a TV thing. Whenever they cut to
TV thing,
nothing says TV more than those because we've talked about the music is trash.
And the music is awful.
But it'll do that, and then it goes to black. You're like,
and that immediately after was going to be like a margarine commercial.
Yeah.
I'm just flashing back to me as a kid, like going, ah! Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the idea of this ending with Jeffrey Lewis being bitten, and then it would have been like, got upset stomach?
Exactly.
What?
It would have been that dog chow commercial with like the little chuck wagon. That's going back to the 1970s. Come on.
It would have been Bob Conrad asking you to knock that battery off his shoulder.
Good pull. Let's see. It would have been James Garner and Mariette Hartley taking cute Polaroid pictures of each other.
It would have been that's a spicy meatball.
Oh, okay. We're not gonna keep trying to. Okay, it would have been Jeffrey Holder saying, "Never had it, never will." All right, we're moving on.
Man, good, because I was about to mention Mr. Whipple.
Oh my God! Don't squeeze the goddamn charm. You even make a move like you're gonna do it.
I always thought
you up.
They knew about some kind of fetish thing, right? He was trouble in that store before.
Yeah. Well, no, Mr. Whipple was the one telling them not to squeeze the Charmin. So, in other words, he's like the Kolchak.
No, but then
he's busting a fetish ring.
But then at the end, he was squeezing it.
Oh, that's right.
That's what I'm saying.
They would go, "Oh, sorry." Then he'd go, "Now that you're gone."
That's what I mean. It was a self-hating thing. He had the fetish, but he loathed himself for it. He had such shame over his Charmin fetish. He'd go home and he would
actually flog himself. You are better than this. You are better than this.
You slipped again, Whipple. You slipped again. That Charmin's so tempting.
This is the kind of shit no one's hearing on any other podcast.
No,
come on, give us our Emmy.
We're a podcast, but somehow we're getting a television award. Yeah,
it's what we deserve.
Well, the show is so good. They said, "Which award do you want?" And we said, we could have had.
We want an EGOT.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll get around to the other ones.
We will indeed.
Yeah. So, let's see. Then we come back in on. Let's see. We come back in on Ben, and he's talking to Susan on the phone. There's a transitionary shot of him driving his Jeep, but.
Right.
The scene
that is the opening of part 2.
But the scene is him on the phone with Susan, and apparently things are going just fine in Boston. Anyway, this whole Boston thing doesn't need to be in this at all.
It's basically just a way to keep her out of the early stages of the vampire takeover.
Yeah.
She's just not there. She shows up later and where they're already kind of like going, okay. Follow me if you can. Vampires are in the town.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So then Eva, who's the woman who runs the what's the word I'm looking for?
The what do you call it?
I know. Now both of us can't come up with a word where are we staying? I want to say flop house, but
boarding
that's
house.
boarding house. I want to say flop house.
Flop house. Yeah, for all the bums that come in off the trains.
Well, her ex-husband seems to be in some kind of flop house situation.
That's true. Weasel is essentially that guy.
Weasel, who has completely disappeared in part 2.
Yeah, they talk about him. She has a dream.
There's a lot of characters who just disappear in the second part, which is once again sort of the problem of there's a lot of characters in the novel.
Yeah, and they this is just where they didn't have the time. They try to give some lip service to, like, when she talks about the dream of, oh, I saw Weasel and he was young and he kissed me on the neck, and you're like going, right, so now we can infer that at some point off camera, Weasel has become a vampire and he's visiting his ex-wife.
But it's so interesting because part 1 does so much to introduce all of these. I was thinking about, like, the whole Larry Crockett doing Cully's wife pays off in no way in part 2.
No way at all.
No, it has nothing to do with anything. To which I'm going, like, that. I mean, as much as I actually like that scene with the shotgun,
yeah,
I probably would have excised that to include something more important in this thing.
I mean, we needed Crockett's death because it's an early attack.
You could still have Crockett killed in some other way, and you could even still imply that he's banging the guy's wife, but you didn't need that confrontation. It took up a lot of time.
It does feel like maybe the adaptation, maybe the writer had actually written 3 parts, and then they said, no, budget's been cut, and then he just combined parts 2 and 3. And he cut huge chunks because
that would make a lot of sense.
It feels more like the book, as we said. There's leisurely time to get to know these people, but if you're not going to pay it off in part 2, what was the point? As you're saying,
by the way, I don't know.
You would probably want to.
I don't know how much you looked into the background on this movie at all, but
I don't even do that anymore because it's just it's too much pain.
This was originally developed as a feature film for Warner Brothers Pictures with George A. Romero attached to direct.
Oh dear!
But then that would have been something.
Yes, indeed.
But then when Universal announced Dracula and Werner Herzog's Nosferatu were coming out in '79, they thought, oh, that's too much vampire movies at the box office, so we better make this into a TV thing. And Romero said, if it's TV, then forget it. I won't be able to make what I want with the TV restrictions. So he dropped out.
He ain't wrong. No. He ain't wrong.
No. I mean, I'm sure he would have really gone after it, I feel like, in a feature film format.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. Man, I would have liked to have seen that. He did direct a Stephen King adaptation, The Dark Half, in the 90s, which is...
Yeah.
I mean, it's not
you got some decent Tim Hutton acting.
Yeah, before his troubles.
Before his troubles.
Yeah, you're not going to see Tim Hutton in anything again, probably.
Ever.
Here's an interesting thing as well. We were talking about beforehand these hunky dudes playing Ben Mears. Apparently, Stephen King had actor Ben Gazzara in mind when he wrote the character in the novel.
Wow. Which says a lot to how early he started writing the novel.
Yeah. Because I read that too and went, a little old. But yeah, exactly. I would be curious to see. We already talked about how rushed this feels. Once again, that 112-minute theatrical movie version of this must be almost impossible to follow, right?
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, trying to jam this into even. That's almost that's a little more than half as long as this. Jesus, I mean, whole characters must just disappear.
Yeah, I wonder what they lose. I mean, but I am not interested enough to find out because I mean, this feels rushed. As at the same time, it's very enjoyable. But man, I don't want to see it down to 112 minutes. What the fuck?
Apparently, there is some section of fans who prefer that cut.
Okay.
It's like, okay.
Well, there's always some section of fans. I mean, for whatever it is.
At this point, yeah, especially with the internet, there's somebody going, and there's always somebody who's that contrarian who goes, no, the one everybody thinks sucks is actually the best version.
Somebody is out there basically saying The Adventures of Wonder Woman with Kathy Lee Crosby is the best.
That's the definitive Wonder Woman, if you really think
they're like going, I'm sorry. To me, she's a blonde American spy.
There's somebody waving a flag for that Josh Trank Fantastic Four movie.
Oh boy,
I bet
that is a lonely flag waver.
I thought it was pretty good.
You know what? It takes a lot of flack, but look at that thing.
I mean, that's the I have nothing nice to say about that. I have some things I like about the Tim Story movies. There are aspects of those that I thought captured.
There are aspects. There are tiny, itty bitty little adorable aspects of them.
Well, some of them are like whole lead performances, but you know, but even still, whereas the Trank movie, nothing. I have nothing nice to say about it.
No,
it's utter garbage and has nothing to do with the beloved Fantastic Four.
Amen, brother.
All right, back to
This was Fantastic Four pod. This was fantastic chat.
Oh, you and I are always on the verge of Fantastic Four chat. So,
what trivia question did I ask you last night that you failed?
I did fail. You asked me what the sound effect, the onomatopoeia of the cosmic rays, and it was one of those infuriating ones where as soon as you said it, I'm like, God damn it, because the panels with the tack, 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 tack came immediately to my head.
Yes.
Like, fuck.
Yes.
You're right. Of course.
It was just because, and for our listeners, it's not that I randomly assault people with Fantastic Four trivia questions. You were wearing a Fantastic Four sweatshirt.
Yes, I was.
But everyone knows that Spider-Man's web shooters go thwip. Everyone knows that Wolverine's claws go snicked.
Yep.
Everyone knows that Nightcrawler's teleportation is bamf.
Yeah.
You have to know that the cosmic rays that created the Fantastic Four sounded like this. Tack, 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 tack.
Yeah. Well, you do, but also that sound effect does not appear nearly as often as literally all of the other ones you just mentioned.
Very true. Notice those are all Marvels. I can't think of anything at DC that has a signature
signature sound. No, not at all. I can't think.
Not even like Superman taking flight. I mean, there's the old thing of like, look up in the sky, but that's not an onomatopoeia. And they only use that for irony's sake now anyway.
There might be a whoosh associated with him sometimes, but it's not an iconic thing directly.
No, there really isn't.
There's no batarang throwing sound. You would think that would be a sound.
DC, get on this. You've had like almost a century.
How is there not a Wonder Woman bullets hitting bracelet sound? That feels like that should be an iconic sound.
Marvel was just thinking. They're like, let's have identifiable sound effects for all these characters.
I have the Superman water bottle with me all the time, and it does have just random onomatopoeia sounds on it.
Yeah.
Pow, whack, stuff like that. Yeah. In between the other parts where it just says, Man of Steel.
It's very helpful of that water bottle to explain who you've got there.
Well, for those who don't know,
yeah. This colorfully dressed gentleman apparently is made of steel. I don't know.
You know what? I didn't even know who he was when I bought this, Brandon. I just thought that guy's a fancy dresser.
That guy's a fancy dresser.
I like
and
his
look at the definition. He clearly takes care of his body.
I want to know what his workout plan is. That's why I bought this. So anyway, let's see here.
Back to Salem's Lot.
So Eva comes in and says, "Oh yeah, Susan's ex-boyfriend Ned now is his name. He's been walking around town saying he's gonna kick the shit out of you, basically.
Yeah.
I just love this idea of like everybody says, which I don't know. People know they broke up like years ago, right? So how do they not know that?
I don't think it's supposed to be years.
It's a while. Let me say, it is not. It is enough time that it's not completely insane. She might be dating somebody else.
In the book, it actually is like she's dating them both kind of concurrently.
Yeah, in the book, it's like their relationship is headed towards breakup, but it's not official yet. Here, it really is like she's like, well, I know it's the thing where the only reason I say years is because he did that thing where 4 years ago she said she loved him. They had that thing, which is just like, well, that's a psychotic statement. I don't know when they broke up exactly, but he is.
Which makes her mom even sadder that her mom is still pushing for her to end up with Ned. It's like 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was a few months, maybe you'd have the parent going, maybe give Ned another shot.
Yeah.
But 4 years.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
It seems like things are definitively over between them in the miniseries here.
Yeah.
And yet this guy is walking around town just openly going, I'm going to beat that guy up. And people
know, to the point where he was like having to warn him.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, come on.
And then when he does, he just realistically, he just immediately goes to jail for it. Which is what happens.
I think it's funny that
premeditated
as
assault.
we said, Ned pops out from behind the door of Ben's room and then beats the shit out of him. Then we cut to the hospital. What cracked me up is they're like going, "Well, you're lucky you're awake," and he's just got very TV movie the patch on the forehead,
the one bandage on the forehead, yeah, and you're just like,
I'm like,
wow,
it sounded like
he really thrashed him.
Yeah, really thrashed him. He's like, oh, did he have a bump on his head? Yeah. Did a bump? I want to see some swollen mouth and, like an shut eye or something on that kind of stuff. I want to see
David Soul look a hell of a lot less handsome after that.
No, don't give up on us, baby.
I want to see them talking about reconstructive surgery.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to... Well, let's just say this. You're not going to be able to whistle anymore. What?
Yeah, give me a jaw wired shut or something. Now, because he's got to get right back up into vampire fighting action almost immediately.
Yeah,
so,
we do need him on the case.
The Ben Mears action figure with real vampire fighting action.
Not gonna lie, if they had put out a Ben and Mark action figure with a Straker and a Barlow chase variant set or something, I would have been after that shit.
In today's world, this new movie probably will get us Salem's Lot figures. Because it's the same team that did It, and they did a bunch of It merchandise, which I didn't buy any of because I like the adaptation of those, but that's never been a really one of my favorites or one I want to own toys of. 100% though, I will buy Salem's Lot figures.
Yeah, well, it's the book is probably my second favorite King, but I agree that the movies I enjoyed. They were like, that's decent.
They're really
but
good.
I wasn't going to track down any kind of Pennywise merchandise.
No, I remember seeing all that stuff and just going nah. Especially,
I'm good.
I already have a lot of toys, so I am pretty choosy still with what I buy. But 100%.
You heard it here first, listeners. John Campbell has a lot of toys.
If Warner Brothers, if you put out a Ben Mears action figure, I'm buying that. Anyway. So look out because Ned's looking for him. Meanwhile, we enter on Mark in very relatable fashion, painting monster models.
Yep.
Although I never did that, and I still don't because I don't have the art skills to do it well, so it would always look like shit if I tried to paint something. So
I did a few of the Aurora kits that were. I had a couple of the monsters, and I had a couple of the superheroes, and my paint jobs sucked so bad.
I had a Superman one that it looked like shit, and so I never got another one because I was just like, no, it won't look good.
Just won't.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. I don't have that. I don't have the time or the patience or the skill to do that. So he's painting a model kit, and you hear his parents arguing about how he's handling the situation.
I love it.
Well, I don't understand. Shouldn't he be more upset? Or why isn't he
They're
crying?
having this argument, his door is open. They're having this argument, I can only assume, probably about 10 inches from the doorway. It's so, he's just sitting there going, I'm pretending I can't hear them, and it's the most obvious thing.
Frankenstein monster figure or whatever, and just being like, yeah, they're arguing about
some kind of sociopath. He no expression on his face. That was the mom's concern.
That's exactly what they're arguing. It's like he lacks emotions or empathy. He's on a path to being a serial killer, honey. Should have known.
Yes, but a serial killer for good, like Dexter.
Well, yes, who I have many times been like, I prefer the term vigilante for Dexter.
Sure.
Yeah. He's But anyway, and there is some line there about we never should have bought him all those monster masks. I tell you, there is sort of thing about we'd let him down, that he was always a weird kid. And
it's I'm gonna go check on him, and I hope he hasn't been listening in.
Yeah. But definitively, I do relate to this of being the weird kid who had weird interests that my dad was like, hey, you're still reading those funny books, huh? All right. luckily culture turned my way, but there was a period of time there when it was like, he's kind of weird. Now we're the normal ones who like the things everybody else likes.
Yeah, it all worked out for us.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that there's now a major studio movie of this is an indication, once again, of like there's profit in this nerdy shit.
They made that decision, or they came to that realization, I should say, early 2000s.
Yeah,
and we've all benefited.
It was the 1-2 X-Men then Spider-Man, I feel like, that really sold that. Although I am always one of those people who says, don't forget about Blade. Blade was part of it.
John, who are you talking to?
No, I wouldn't say that to you. I say this to others. It was the same thing when Black Panther came out. People go like, wow, a Marvel Comics movie with a black lead. I'm like, Blade in 1998.
We had 3 of them. And you're forgiven if you hated, a couple of them, but come on.
Well, that third one is shit. But
all I can say is, not my Dracula. Hashtag not my Dracula.
Someday we will get to that movie on this show, but not
my Hannibal King either.
Ooh,
but
yet somehow Ryan Reynolds is the best part of it, even though he's not.
I know,
because
not saying
he's just Ryan Reynoldsing all over the place in that movie.
Oh God, yeah, I was actually kind of offended at how much Reynoldsing was happening.
But
on
Blade
screen.
2 rules.
Yeah.
The first 2 Blades, so good. But all right, so his father comes in and he's like, working with your monsters there, huh? And doesn't he go like, wait, what, Mark? I like this is his dad's best attempt to relate to him, where he's like, what is it you like about the monsters and the magic there?
He literally says that.
That's the
What's
line.
your thing with the monsters and the magic?
Yeah, and this is, once again, like, I'm really going back to conversations with my father, the diehard sports fan, of me at about 13, 14 with my dad going, what is the deal with all the wizards and the people with the powers and stuff that you like? I'm so glad I have the movies I can take him to, and he now, like, kind of gets it. Where he's like, he goes, I like that Spider-Man. He's a good kid. Like,
he's a good kid.
He really,
what? He don't want to hurt nobody.
Yeah, that's kind of where he's at now. Even
though he's got like the spider thwip stuff.
Yeah,
he's a guy.
He goes, he's just like, I like that kid. I don't remember what his name is, but I like that kid. Dad doesn't know anyone's names.
Tom of Finland? Yeah. No, it's Tom Holland.
Yeah. No, that's
Tom.
Classic. My dad doesn't know anyone's names, but he's like, I saw that movie with that guy who was in the thing. Pretty good. Like, I have no idea what you're describing.
What was on screen? With the guns. Okay, we're done.
That's pretty much it. There's a guy and he likes a girl. The girl doesn't like him. Like, that's every movie, Dad. I don't know what to. But he's always going, the one. With the
does
guy.
He actually do the finger snapping?
He does kind of do that. What is it? And he's always looking at me going, what is it? Like what? Tell me. I'm going. I have no idea what you're talking about. He loves movies, but the details just whoosh right by him.
He's not logging that stuff the way some people do.
No.
Like people like us.
Yes. Though. Well, Surgeon General recommends no one live like we do. Surgeon
General's amazed that we're still breathing, so we'll just keep.
Man, I can't believe there's enough room in their brains to remember to breathe. Really, Jesus. So much Marvel continuity in here. He goes, hey, how about these handcuffs? Can you escape these handcuffs? And I was like,
this is so weird because he's got the tabletop where, as you were wondering, what's that table about? And it is where he does his model work.
Yep.
But in addition to all the model and the paints and all that stuff is because we do see he also has magician's equipment in the room.
Yeah.
They're at least indicating that.
This also lands on me as a magic nerd too.
But I know. But the dad picking up handcuffs off the table, and this scene's a little uncomfortable. He's like, "Hey, can you get out of these?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure."
Yeah. And he does. And then he goes, and then Mark's like, wow, you're showing interest in me, Dad? You want to tie me up too? And he's like, that's enough for tonight, son.
No, that's
Jesus Christ.
Nope.
Yeah, early in pandemic, and actually now that I have the time, I'm getting back to it. I was learning close-up magic because it's something I've always wanted to do. So I haven't.
What? Are you kidding?
Yeah, I got to get back to it because I'm rusty now because I took that job for a while.
Yep.
Which that job that shall not be named legally.
Look, just tell people that you were a Hollywood fixer, and we'll just move on from there.
It's kind of a Ray Donovan type.
It was kind of taking care of some rumors about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. But no, yeah, that was, and so I'm getting back to that now. I have a bunch of decks of cards around, and I'm trying to do something.
I had no idea that was an interest of yours.
Oh,
you really are a mark.
Oh, yeah. It's like, if it's super nerdy, I've at least dabbled in it.
I noticed that you've been really into macrame.
The nerdiest of pursuits. Our very fancily named police chief once again, whose name is Parkins Gillespie. He gets the phone call from the FBI because he asked them to run info on Straker, Barlow, and Ben Mears, and he gets all this info about. Well, Straker and Barlow have been running businesses in Europe, and Barlow
was originally German. He changed his name. He was born in the 1920s.
He got out of Germany, though, before the war, so he's not a Nazi, probably.
Yep.
Whatever. And I just like the police chief just being like, and you're saying there's no connection to this Ben Mears? Or like, no, we couldn't find anything. And then he just hangs up. He's like, no, there's something there. It's like, what great police work, buddy.
It's also just so strange how like that obsession is never explained at all.
Nope. And
it's just sort of like I won't give up till I find something on that rider.
This is another character who just disappears from this movie. I mean, we see
where
he
does
goes.
A good scene.
He
like
does.
His going away scene is pretty good.
This I couldn't remember, but I think he has more in the book though than this.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't
because
think
he is the lead, law enforcement guy. He has more to do.
Right? Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he just takes off like this in the book.
He does take off,
Does
but there's just more to it.
Yeah,
I don't remember what his problem with Ben is. Here, it's been very, just obfuscated, and you're like, okay, we're just going to take it at face value.
Once again,
anyone that's not from the town, is
that seems to just be the general color they're painting the guy with here. Is it just like, hey, he's not from around here. Even though he is, and actually we find out here, he was born in Salem's Lot and lived there till he was 10.
Yeah.
Which is different than the book. But and also weird that he knows where everything is if he left when he was 10.
Yeah, I know.
He was driving around town at like 8. Is it down here by the diner? Yep, got it.
I lived in the same town, a little town in Mississippi, till I was 9, and I have been back several times because it's where my dad lives. But I would have to be told where my old house was. I would not be able to. You don't remember no problem.
Every street and storefront and
nope. And I wouldn't know the local legends of the old whatever house.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so he's like, I gotta find a connection somehow. Meanwhile, Ben and Burke are in the diner here, and we get Mike Ryerson, having been bitten by a vampire, just stumbling in. This is great Jeffrey Lewis stuff, where he's just like, right, Jesus Christ, like. He
looks like he's drunk or stoned, and in fact, I think Lou Ayres' character, what's his name again?
Jason Burke,
the teacher guy.
Yeah.
Right. He's like going, are you on something? Because he is, but then you realize no, he's like very sick, and
that's what he says. Like, he just goes sick, very sick,
Yeah, and he's like, can we get you something to drink? And he's like, and then it's like, I'm volunteering to take care of this dude.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Like I said, not that it's even played up much in the novel. One of the things that makes that scene with the rocking chair so creepy, as we'll get to, is it is coded pretty clearly in the book that the teacher is a obviously predatory, but he was one of the outsiders in the town. He was a gay man in
Mm-hmm.
this little town. Beloved teacher, but everyone is, he's kind of a weird one. So the whole idea that this former pupil of his, and he's going to take care of him and take him back to his place, and then the whole thing of like, look at me, teacher, that he's taunting him. I'm like, that's very Stephen King.
Oh yeah.
But even in this TV movie, they're dancing around it. There's no indication, though. There's one line of Ben's where he's like going, come on, what are they going to say about you? You're the lifelong bachelor living you're on your own, blah, blah, you're the guy who is well read and well educated and all this. I'm like,
love a confirmed bachelor in town. That's one of those things that does feel very real to me in the small town sense, where it's like, just as long as we don't find out whatever he's into and we're not going to ask any questions, then he's fine.
Classic small town shit.
Yeah, it's just like, nope, but if anybody ever found out he was gay, get him out of here.
Yeah. Just don't mention it. Don't be seen with any dates or boyfriends, and we're going to be okay.
To be fair, they don't like that no matter heterosexual or homosexual. They tell Ben Mears, watch it, pal. Kissing women around town.
I know. You've been spending a lot of time out by the lake.
Yeah. And it is almost like
you and the Duke boys.
The lake isn't exactly on Main Street. I don't really know that they're flaunting their makeout sessions.
Yeah. According to these people, they are practically just having public sex.
They're like at night out by the lake away from everyone kissing. It's like, hey, whoa, buddy. We got kids here.
What do you think you're doing with your hand holding?
yeah, this used to be a nice town. He stumbles in, says he's sick. All he can remember is somebody was singing and bright, scary eyes.
Yeah. The singing. That's interesting.
Meanwhile, now Mark's asleep in his bed, and he's got scratching his window. And it's Danny Glick, the older boy, who's already turned Jeffrey Lewis now. Going, hey, Mark, open up that window. Come on, man. Let's.
Yeah, his younger brother didn't actually do any talking.
No.
But this guy's all like,
come on, hang out. Let's go hang out, Mark. Let's.
Hey, what's up?
And Mark goes over and almost starts to open the window, and then I love him grabbing the cross from the diorama thing that he has.
Yeah.
And
that was one of the clearest things I could remember from this.
Yeah.
Is I remember that he actually used the toy crucifix that was part of the model kit.
Yeah.
And then and it's also kind of cool. Like Mark is like the born Van Helsing kid. And then he pulls that out and he's crying while he's like, no, go away. Go away.
Yeah. And we do get the classic vampire reel back from the crucifix. It's good. It's always good. I always love a vampire recoiling from a crucifix. I don't know. There's just something about that imagery that I love.
I just love the whole point of the vampire approach is always this sort of seductive thing of like, either I'm romantically or sexually seducing you, or it's like, hey, it's me, your son, or hey, I'm your friend, let me in. But when you thwart them, it's that animal thing that comes out. That's what's so cool, is when the facade drops and they're like going, I'm just a hungry beast that wanted to drink you dry. I love that shit.
Edward Van Sloan is one of the best cross pulls in anything in 31 Dracula.
Man, that is almost the fast draw.
He just pulls from the hip and it's like, bam!
Yes, it is off the hip.
Whoa.
That is one of the best things ever.
It is one of the, and the way Dracula reacts is like, whoa, 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 put away the piece, man. Hey,
let's be cool about this. Let's be cool.
We was just talking, buddy, all right?
We was just talking. Right. No need to get all up in my grill about it.
I love it. And of course, Cushing was an all-time great busting out a cross, man.
Oh,
he knew how to do it. But this is pretty solid here from Mark. Nice.
Yeah, I'll give it a solid B. B+. And then maybe.
He goes to bed and he gets back in his bed and he's crying. His dad comes in going, what's going on in here? Did you have a bad dream? He's like, yeah, Dad, that was it. He's like, okay. Do you need something from me? He's like, no, Dad. This scene I like because it's almost just like, no, Dad, you're gonna be useless. That's what this is gonna be. Yeah. So Just
I do
you go back
like
to
the fact
bed.
that Mark, he knows who to open up to about this
Yeah.
stuff. He's not even going to bother his parents
No.
about it because they're just going to think he's a lunatic.
Right, exactly. And at a certain point, we also see he knows that, and we also see Ben Mears starting to figure that out. Where he's like, I better be careful with what I say and to who.
Ben's a little looser. Ben's telling, but I mean, he is an adult trying to get help. It's not
Yes.
like he's like, I need to inform people. As crazy as it sounds,
And he always
this is real.
He
This
does
shit's
start.
real.
He does start with like, look, I'm not crazy, and I know this is gonna sound weird, but there be
But
vampires.
I do think the scene where he and Jason are talking to the doctor,
Yeah,
and they're like, do you believe in ghosts?
yeah.
What about witches and warlocks?
I love the idea that let's work our way up to vampire.
Let's work
right?
our way up. Ghosts to witches and warlocks
And
and werewolves.
He writes off all those things, but then
Yeah.
he's still like, vampires?
Well, look, I'm not officially going to say yes or no, but I'm willing to hear you out
Yeah.
on this vampire business.
We didn't talk about this on the last thing, but yeah, that the change of making this Dr. Norton Susan's father rather than Dr. Cody, who's just a doctor in the book.
Yeah.
I don't know what you gain or lose from that, other than that actually feels like one of the only things they do to simplify characters. Like
yeah, they're trying to basically collapse roles into one.
Yeah, they do that in a couple places, but then
That's
there's also
efficient-ish.
There's still a lot. I would argue that they would have been to the movie's advantage to do more of that actually.
Yeah,
because there's so many characters just end up disappearing that had you collapse them into the same character, that might.
Well, I mean, to tell you the truth, Zunda.
Yeah.
I can't remember his character name.
Oh, Cully.
But Cully, there you go. He could have been Ryerson.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like you could have combined those two characters
easily done that. But there's a few things like that, and all, I mean, like Emily said, there's so many characters just start disappearing with no explanation. Actually, Lou Ayres, I think, is one of those characters who kind of becomes the Van Helsing, at least as the like learned guy going through the supernatural books in the novel.
He does get a great hero moment, but then, and I do appreciate this, and it's very Stephen King, where his death is not due to the supernatural. I mean, it is sort of, but it's a human death. Yeah. Following an encounter with this great evil. And it's kind of nice. It's like, right, you can be Van Helsing, but you might still have a bad heart. Right. Like, right, I get it. That's but
okay. you never get him as fully the like knowledgeable guy going like, here's what you're gonna do.
No.
Instead, it's we'll get to it. But the thing when he's just like, I called a friend of mine who knows about the supernatural, and he told me about it. And you're just like, what?
Yeah, that
really
shaky.
Feels like, all right, now we really are just trying to cut time here.
That's shaky, but so is the book scene, which is what I was going to be talking about. Book scene.
Yeah. So he does that. Meanwhile, now we're getting to the rocking chair scene where Burke wakes up in the middle of the night. He hears the creaking of the rocking chair upstairs.
Yeah, because he took Ryerson back because he was sick, took him to his own house, just laid him up, said, take it easy. Yeah. But then he's here. He's here in that rocking chair.
Wouldn't chance this in a COVID world now, would we? Hey, you're sick? Come on over to my house. And
he goes into that room and the bedroom over the top of the stairs, and whoa, man,
full on vampire Jeffrey Lewis. And how long he's just watching him, and he's looking down, and then when he finally does look up, and he's got those glowing eyes, you're like, yeah.
Tobe Hooper knew. I mean, he knew how to pace these for creep. He also knew what he had with those contacts, with those eyes.
Yeah.
So in two scenes, very specifically, like this one, and obviously the Susan scene at the end, it's like delay that.
Well, because
as long as
you're also watching it going like when he's rocking the chair, you're like, does he know he's here? And then when he does, it's like, hello, teacher. And you're like, get out of here, man.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. And Jeffrey Lewis is so good. What he really, really takes, he really goes at being a vampire. I never saw Jeffrey Lewis do something where he wasn't just all in.
But what I like about this, Jeffrey Lewis is a great character actor.
Oh yeah,
always. You're going to get your money's worth with the Jeffrey Lewis and his daughter. But he is normally the over-the-top guy. In fact, early parts of this, obviously, he's big, he's bug-eyed. He does that Jeffrey Lewis thing. He's always a little. His energy is very hyperkinetic. Toby Hooper telling him, or him taking the point of, sit there as still as you can, and when you talk, low tone. He doesn't pop. He doesn't sit there and go, "I'm a vampire and I'm coming for you." It's just like,
right.
Look at me, teacher. Look at me. And I'm like, oh, that works, especially when you have a guy whose energy was all that, and then he's decided for this scene, no, I'm bringing the full Erie. Oh, it's so good.
So good. And it's always that...
And here's the thing. This is the thing I've seen a million times, made for TV in 1979, and I don't get scared at horror movies because I've loved them my whole life, and I know they're fake, and I enjoy them. And this isn't, I wasn't scared, but to be affected at all, to
it's
get
unsettling.
A creeping eeriness,
boom.
That's a good director. That's a good star.
Similarly, I don't get scared in the way some audiences do, but I can recognize when something's like, ooh, this is creepy.
Yep.
This is effective. It does play more as like respect for this. I like this.
Full on respect.
I see what you've done here. Very well done. Like, yeah, that's, and I feel like that's how a lot of horror fans watch horror stuff, where it's almost just like, because also if you are a horror fan, you see a lot of junk. Because
boy, do you ever!
It is a genre that has high highs and low lows. Good Lord! I always go in hoping that I'm going to see, because when it works, oh man, there's nothing better.
Nothing better.
He sees this. And he's worried because he does see the bites on his neck, and he's a fucking vampire. So,
the bites on his neck was earlier. There's the thing where he when he first brings him back.
Yes, you're right. Right, that's where I was there. So the sheriff comes to I skipped ahead to that rocking chair scene, didn't I?
You did
because then he calls Ben and he's like, yeah, get Eva Miller's crucifix and rosary. And I love Eva just being like, well, he's never been Catholic, what does he need with those things?
Yeah, it's kind of great. And she goes, are you Catholic? He's like, no. And she's like, well, as far as I know, Jason's a Lutheran, always has been.
Yeah.
And this is for Ned Ryerson. Well, he's not Catholic.
Yeah.
I do like it because she's just like going, no, none of this makes sense. Why are you doing this?
Right.
Okay.
Because then the next morning the sheriff comes to collect the body and he's like, I want sworn testimony from you, Mears, about what? I mean, I love that he's always just like, I don't know how or why, but you're definitely murdering people, Mears.
Yeah, what we skipped over is fairly important, is that when the cop has been called, at that point, Jeffrey Lewis is dead.
Yes, like we've seen a few
people. He died in Jason's upstairs bedroom.
He comes back for the rocking chair thing. That was my...
Right. That's why it's even creepier that Jason is hearing any sound at all, because Ryerson's dead, and then he goes up there and he's sitting in the rocking chair.
And they tell the doctor... Dr. Norton here, and not only was I happy to see Ed Flanders back, but I was really happy to see that terrible hairpiece. And I really looked at it this time, and it's so bad. The color in no way matches.
No,
is that it? I mean, it is.
He's trying to indicate, because it's like a black on top.
Yeah.
And then his natural gray, the actual hair on the sides.
Right.
So he's trying to make it look like, well, no, that's just like I've gone gray at the sides.
Yeah.
But no, it convinces nothing. It makes it look even less natural.
Because it's not a salt and pepper. It's pepper then salt. There's no mix of the two. It's just a hard line.
It looks like they were trying to pave over a speed bump, some kind of like a pothole, because it looks like a tar substance has been laying on the top of his cranium.
The thing it looks like to me is
horrifying.
he's been bald a long time, and this used to match and work somewhat better. but he just
I
never
can't
bought
even
the new
see that
rug.
because it doesn't have any spring to it. Also,
No.
it's low. It just sits there. It looks like it was glopped on. Oh
It
my
does. It
god!
looks like he's like, wait, before you call action, here, wait, plops it on. Let's go. Like
I can only assume that maybe okay.
no hair
I know how
department
actors
worked on it.
are. When you come up, actors are often very loyal to friends they've come up with. I can only assume that the hairpiece was like a scene partner. And he's like going, if I've got this high profile TV movie gig, I'm getting my friend in on this too.
Do you think there's any more money in the budget for my hairpiece?
I have a feeling he probably gave part of his cut to the hairpiece.
You're saying Ed Flanders and his hairpiece had like a DiCaprio Pitt relationship in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? You got something for my boy.
Oh my god, it is the worst.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Bette Iverson, hairstylist on this movie. I don't think she put a lot of time into whatever. I think he's like, no.
I have a feeling Flanders said, no, I got this.
I got this. He's an old friend.
He's an old friend. We go way back.
He pulls it out of the hat box. He rolls it around.
I think he probably bought it new in 1964, and he decided he was going to keep it.
Yeah.
And keep it. Thank God he lost it for St. Elsewhere.
No,
and finally just admitted to the world, I am a bald man.
Did you watch St. Elsewhere and go, no way, Ed Flanders?
I did. Where's his friend? And actually, the end of the pilot episode of St. Elsewhere, it says in memoriam. They actually dedicate.
Yeah.
Because apparently between this and the beginning of St. Elsewhere, the hairpiece passed away. And
he was he kept to himself. He was a private guy. We'll just say
he didn't want anyone to know he was sick.
Only those close to him knew how sick he really was. Ed Flanders' hairpiece died last night, surrounded by family and friends.
Oh my god! King, when he was interviewed about this miniseries, he said, adaptations are always, they're chancy, and I often hate what they did. He goes, what Toby really brought to it, a new level of horror, was Ed Flanders' hairpiece. And that actually inspired his next book, which people don't talk about. But that hairpiece horror thing was
The Rug.
Woo, the Rug.
Stephen King's The Rug. Yeah.
King's The Rug. Oh Jesus!
That thing's not staying on in the pool. That's all I'm saying. It's not
Hey John.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a werewolf break. Hang on one sec.
All right. Yeah, I hope everybody figured out who the werewolf was.
Yeah, because he apparently shows up at the end of this movie. Columbo.
Cat's on now. So back to this here. They're
talking to the doctor.
Oh,
they're telling them,
and Ben
they're
Mears
asking if
is
he
like,
believes in witches.
Yeah, and he's like, hey man, whatever's going on here, whatever you want to call it, it's just getting started. This is only going to get worse from here. So at least give us that. At least like this pernicious anemia people keep dying of. Like,
oh my god, I was so happy that it showed backup.
Yeah.
When they said it in part 2, I was like, never let that drop.
Well, because they're like, did you hear Mike Ryerson died? And you're like, well, what happened to him? Pernicious anemia. And the way it's said is almost like, can you believe it? Another one. Anyway, so weird. Let's not look into it further.
There's a whole thing, it's maybe not this scene, but it's not, I think, too long after Ryerson comes in. But I love when it really starts ramping up, and there's a scene where they literally just go down a list of who's been passing out or dying in town.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, you guys are not having a good week. It's
also,
just ridiculous. Like that guy dropped, this other guy dropped, this other person dropped.
I don't know. Maybe it's time to call the government about something. Get CDC in here. Like something. Even if you're going, it's not vampires. The fact that people keep having pernicious anemia, something's fucking wrong.
They said no because we saw Dreamcatchers, and then they said, we saw The Mist. We read that. We know what happens when you call in the government. Nothing.
Oh, Dreamcatcher. Jesus
I know.
Christ.
I know.
Bad book and bad movie.
Yeah. Bad book, bad movie.
Bad
good cast.
Bad book. I mean, horrendous movie, though. Like, with an amazing cast. And Lawrence Kasdan direct. I love
I
Lawrence
know.
Kasdan. I don't know how that went. I remember going to that and going like, well, this has got to be good. Like, it just has to be.
You would think.
Even if the book is bad, Kasdan will make it work. Ooh, no. Terrible.
I just can't see. I mean, there are at this point, there are still plenty of Stephen King properties that have not been touched.
Yeah.
And I can't see people of that caliber saying, let's attach ourselves to that story.
Right.
It is a weak one. It's also weird. You don't think people are going to laugh at shit weasels? You think people aren't going to, just not be able to take this seriously?
I mean, Donnie Wahlberg playing a mentally handicapped guy. Like,
oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's Scooby-Doo time. And you're like, I'm
boy.
sorry.
Oh, boy.
Even then, that was not okay.
Oh, boy.
Terrible movie.
Yep.
Damian Lewis, though, giving it his all in that insane performance.
Yep.
Oh, man. God bless him. So let's... He tried to save that thing. Yeah, so they tell the doctor... Ben hears that the antique store is opening, so we go to the antique store. And this is one of my favorite scenes, and it's such a tiny scene. It's Mark's mom going like, picking up this weird, like, blown glass statue and just going,
yeah,
wouldn't your father love this? And I like Mark just going, I guess. I don't
Yeah, whatever, sure.
Yeah. And then her going like, oh dear, this price can't be right. And James Mason just going, I assure you it's a very fair price, madam.
Yeah, and she's like, you don't suppose you could not? And he's like, oh, no. But I could hold it for you.
Yeah.
For a week. And she's like, oh, could you? Great. Yeah. Again, this follows up to nothing. This goes nowhere.
No, but I just love the idea about, like, look, this is all a front for our vampire activities, but we still gotta make the paper.
I mean, we're going to drain you eventually. That's just what we do. But as long as we're talking business, nope.
No, I just love the idea about, like, no. We still take the business seriously. That is a fair price.
I'm sorry. Did you see barter welcome on the front of the store? I don't believe so. This isn't some sort of marketplace in India.
Yeah. Try your luck at Goodwill, lady.
I say, you pedestrian Americans.
It indicates that, like, nobody's ever gonna buy anything in this shop, clearly. Like, it's not...
When you see how fast the vampirism spreads once Barlow's on the loose, you're like, why bother setting up a shop? I mean, no one will be alive to buy anything within 48 hours.
There's so many scenes in part 1 where Mason is putting this shop together and, like, ordering stuff on a shelf, and, he's like, he's
brought in the most exquisite piece. I think everyone will enjoy looking at it in the 15 minutes before they are totally empty husks.
It almost seems like he's like, well, yes, master, I'll happily have you take over the town, but could I please just run my antique shop for a little while?
It's not too much to ask. It gives me something to do during the day when you're asleep.
He's a vampire familiar by day, but really what he wants to be is an antique store owner. Can't I do both?
Oh my
Isn't
God.
that what America's built on?
Here's the skit idea. Straker is one of the guys on Antiques Roadshow. Come on, we do a whole skit about that. Oh yes, this goes back to the 18th century, and I'd like to show this to our expert right over here, Mr. Barlow. Would you talk to these nice people about this piece? And he just
you'll greatly enjoy Mr. Barlow almost as much as he'll enjoy you.
Oh, he does get that line, and it's
in
great
the scene when Ben comes in.
It.
When Ben comes, no, it is to me, Mason is the MVP of this whole thing. Mason is, for as bad as he was on that Frankenstein thing, he is so good in this. Oh,
he is so good.
Them saying, I think we talked about this last week. Them saying he just loved this script. You can tell, especially when he gets a real killer of a line like that.
Well, Ben, as we said, they've opened the shop and everyone's there. Ben comes in and there's this I mean, obviously, there's this knowing thing between Straker and Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Straker knows Ben's interested, but
Yeah.
here Ben admits, I'm here working on a book about the house, the Marston house, and he goes,
Ooh.
"You've heard the story, right? The tragedy of it." And he's like, "Oh yes, terrible."
Yes.
It's like, yes, people died there, committed suicide, there were abducted children. He's like, "Oh yes, quite terrible." And I love the fact that while he's saying all that, he's just kind of idly looking. He's not looking at Ben even. He's like going,
Yeah.
"Yes, it's all very bad." He's like looking at other people in the store. Yes, yes, oh children, yes, they're dreadful.
I would love it if we just threw in like a quick, "Hey, don't handle that, please." All right,
Yeah,
that's not for touching.
something like that. But it is this knowing thing because Ben's kind of pressing him, like, "I want to know what you know, and I'm on to you, buddy."
Well,
And then
doesn't Ben say?
Straker,
Doesn't Ben say? Do you believe evil can be drawn to a location? And Mason's just like, "Oh, yes." Like
he goes, "Well, no more than I believe that trees have souls."
yeah,
it's like this weird line. I'm like, okay,
it's a Mason
but it is
improv,
great.
man. That's Mason off the cuff.
You can also see that. I mean, David Soul was a TV actor. He's
Yeah.
not bad though, and
No.
here it's like anything else. When you pair a mediocre or decent actor with a great actor, this scene, David Soul brings it. He rises to it. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And he's basically just going, yeah. He's like, well, good luck with all that, and he goes, is Mr. Barlow in town yet? Is he? He's like, oh, he's on a buying trip, but he'll be back real soon. And he says the line about, it's like, I'm sure that you will enjoy meeting Mr. Barlow, and I know he will enjoy you.
Yeah. Oh, that's good
Oh,
stuff.
that's great.
I was just looking to see here if like he's so good in this. I wanted to see if this like did anything for his career.
Who, James Mason or David Soul?
James Mason. I'll look at David Soul too because I am curious about. I basically, other than this and Starsky and Hutch and the aforementioned terrible Casablanca show, I don't really know what he did. The answer is not really for Mason. He does do Sidney Lumet's The Verdict in 1982, which is a great movie.
Yeah,
and he's got a good part in that.
Well, I mean, we are winding down to the end of his life. I didn't expect a late career huge bump.
I wasn't, sometimes though, if you get good notices on this or people saw this and went, "Oh yeah, James Mason," he does.
Oh, I nearly forgot he's still alive.
He does do an Ivanhoe TV movie.
I remember it. I remember
with
it.
Sam Neill.
Yep.
Yeah. And he does a George Washington 2-part thing or 3-part thing.
With Barry Bostwick, I think. That's the Barry Bostwick.
The 1984 one? Yes, you are correct.
I liked that one a lot.
I like Barry Bostwick. And Patty Duke is Martha Washington.
Yep.
Oh. And then, kind of, I mean, not much. I mean, he dies in 84, so it's not like he's been around that much longer.
You were just basically saying, I want that man to work himself into the grave, and it's sickening me the way you just wanted that man.
I'm saying he's
constantly
he's
work.
so good in this that I'm going, I want to see more late, great Mason performances, and I think other than The Verdict, that's kind of it.
Yeah, you should just go back to the early stuff and rewatch him before the booze really sunk in.
I mean, I am I'm about to launch into a Kubrick rewatch, so I will get to Lolita here soon enough.
Lolita?
Yes!
I told you to stay away from those boys.
Please. Let's see. And then David Soul. Oh, it's just TV movie after miniseries after TV movie, isn't it?
I don't think he really got much of a feature film go.
No. I mean, not at all, man. It
reminds me. I was just watching MST3K's The Gauntlet. And catching up on ones I had missed. Ooh, and I watched Killer Fish.
Oh yeah.
And and I was like, oh right, Lee Majors did make a movie or two. He's another guy that you're only thinking of in terms of TV.
$6 Million Man to Fall Guy.
Born for TV.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
Great on TV.
That's the thing is, like, when I say somebody's TV, I don't necessarily like. I love Lee Majors. Like, that's great.
No, it's just a different. medium.
Okay, I am looking. This was he did try some theatrical leads during Starsky and Hutch. David Soul here. Some movie called The Stick Up.
Sure.
I don't know this one.
Very famous.
And then, oh boy, Dog Pound Shuffle.
Jeez.
And this is him and aforementioned on this program, Ron Moody.
Ron Moody.
They are the stars. It's a two-hander, like,
What?
farce with these
Ron
guys.
Moody.
The doggonedest song and dance you ever saw.
Whoa. Is it like, are they con artists?
A
Sounds
man
like a con
who
artist.
lost his beloved dog enlists the help of a young drifter in finding the animal. This leads to a series of misadventures, including a confrontation with a hulking dog pound worker and a stint providing the entertainment at a millionaire's party. This
sounds like a kid's movie.
This sounds unwatchable.
Yes, it does.
Like, I can't. Number one, Ron Moody and David Soul are your leads. Oh Jesus, I don't need in my life at all. And then
that's what you say now.
Yeah, until I see it and it warms my heart. He did try a couple. Do you remember the television series The Yellow Rose?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that was him. Oh, Sam Elliott. Oh, I love Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good people in it. Sybil Shepherd and Rockford's dad is in it.
Yes. Yeah, it's I think that was a kind of Texas history thing.
Yeah, it's a ranching family in Texas. The trials of a family running a ranch in Texas.
Oh, right. No, yeah, not history. Yeah, it was that. Yeah, I vaguely recall it, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give David Soul full props for he's always solid in this thing.
No, he was. I mean, I never thought of him as a bad actor by any means. It's just I think people were like,
you never watched Casablanca.
Oh well, I mean that's not even him being bad as much as literally I can't imagine anyone being good in that. And he is so far from that part. He is so wildly miscast.
He did cut his hair and had it slicked into a 40s kind of thing.
But he's like a big blonde dude.
He's a big blonde dude.
Just inherently not Humphrey Bogart. And honestly, it's one of those things too where it's like, but who is? I mean, who in their right mind would have thought that anybody could take over that part?
Well, in my mind, Rick Blaine will always be Ronald Reagan. We dodged a crazy bullet. The fact that
we'll always
that's
have Paris. It's going to be the start of a beautiful friendship.
I can't even believe how terrible that would have been. So yeah, we lucked
even out. Young Reagan is old Reagan because that's the only impression I have.
Yeah.
Well,
that's about right.
He was always that guy. Well, Errol Flynn, let's head down that Santa Fe trail.
Can you put a different shade on it? Oh no.
No. Yeah, this is all you're gonna get. Now let me tell you about taxes.
Oh no.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, he did a lot for this country. My controversial Reagan stance.
I think we just lost a huge part of our listening audience.
Oh, I thought this was one of those pro-Reagan shows.
We better get back on the vampires, John.
Yeah, I think we left about an hour ago. Oh yeah. So then when he goes home after this conversation with Straker, is where Ned bursts out and beats the shit out of him. Apparently,
right. And he wakes up in the hospital with being told that he's Wait, did you just jump back even farther? We already talked about that.
No, we mentioned that earlier.
I see. Right.
We mentioned that when we were talking about that Ned was threatening to him. Now that scene has actually happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
He gets the crap beat out by Ned. Yeah. Ned ends up in the jail, which is important.
Yes, it
because
is.
Ned will be. He's not long for this world.
Yeah. Then and while he's in the hospital, he says to Dr. Norton, and hey, get a crucifix in this room. And Dr. Norton's like,
yes,
that's fine if you feel that's necessary, but you're obviously crazy. And hey,
everywhere I look, nut jobs looking for holy artifacts.
And
whatever.
Hey, stop fucking my daughter.
Yeah. By the way,
yeah,
you guys got to stay away from the goddamn lake.
Yeah. When it's almost just like, I don't care what you do with with my daughter, but don't do it out in the open, pal.
Think of the fish.
That seems to be his big thing. It's not so much that he is messing around with his daughter. It's like, and you're flaunting it.
Can't stand the way you guys just in public with the lovey-dovey.
This ain't that kind of town, pal.
This ain't Times Square. What?
You know, always grabbing nurses and kissing them.
You went back to VE Day.
That's that guy's entire context for city life.
I was thinking like gritty, grimy 1970s Times Square, and you're like going, no, I'm going all the way back to the war. You never know when some sailor Joe is going to grab your best gal and plant one on a kisser.
That's what I'm saying. I think this guy, he still lives in fear of that. That's it for New York. True. He saw that picture and said, no way, pal. I'm staying in Salem's
That's never going to
lot.
happen to my pure, innocent daughter.
It's a reason we never let her go to the big city.
And she's in Boston right now. Jeez, they got a lot of sailors in Boston.
Oh, no, we got to get Susan back. And that becomes the thrill of the rest of this thing.
Did anyone kiss you? Like anybody?
Yeah.
Did anyone kiss you? You can tell me, Susan. I'm your dad.
Oh, was he a sailor? Please tell me he wasn't a sailor.
He was a sailor.
No.
The shame. You're gonna end up on Time magazine. Oh,
I'm so upset. My toupee is falling off.
He looks sick to me. Does he look sick to you? I don't think he's got long left.
So then we do have the scene, which the aforementioned scene we've actually gotten to with Jeffrey Lewis in the rocking chair. Burke uses the cross to force Jeffrey Lewis out the window, which looks pretty good. But then he immediately has a heart attack.
Well, the Ryerson, him fending off Ryerson is actually pretty goddamn awesome because it's creepy, as we said.
Yeah.
But also the way Lou Ayres is going. He says, I revoke your invitation. I love that.
That's some real vampire movie dialogue right there.
And since this is where he dies, we didn't talk about his book scene. The only thing that pissed me off about it is I thought this TV movie was being slightly smarter than, like knockoff vampire movies.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd have a scene where someone sits and reads a book about vampires.
They snuck it in.
But we do get one. Lou Ayres reads a book about vampires, and on his nightstand table with the books, clearly like they're aiming the spine at you so you can read the title as Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh, I love the idea of also going, well, I also better prepare for some potential other threats this town might face from monsters.
We might get some Frankensteins.
Well, we need to be ready. I also have put on hold at the library a film print copy of The Wolfman. Just in case. We just want to cover all our bases here.
I got this book brought in special from a library down in Florida. It's Gilman and You. That'll be important.
And then this is just Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. It's good for a laugh.
Complete Idiot's Guide to Mr. Hydes. Yeah. I got that one just in case. You never know.
Because it says here the Dr. Jekylls are fine, but the Mr. Hydes, you just can't deal with those guys.
And I got to tell you, I'm okay. You're invisible. And that should, I think I'm pretty well covered.
We got, let's see, Z is for zombie.
They should have done that. The whole Frankenstein thing, I was like, that's just dumb.
That is really bad.
And I'm sorry, Toby could see that through his viewer. He was okay with that. I'm like, no, Toby. Don't. That's a stupid choice. Anyway.
Now in the event Moon Men from Mars land, I have H.G.
I don't know
Wells'
what to do.
War of the Worlds here.
But so yes, he does get Ryerson out and revokes him, and he smashes out the window. Yeah. But then poor Jason, it was too much for his heart. He dies. He's out of the story.
He doesn't die, actually, which is interesting.
Oh, right. He doesn't die. He goes to the hospital.
Because he doesn't die in the book. The heart attack doesn't kill him in the book either. Which is and then it's while he's in the hospital that he gets all the books in the novel and becomes the guy from his hospital bed who's giving them all the info. Here, once again, it's all we don't have time for all that stuff. We just got to go, man. But he is just out of the movie at this point.
Yeah, we don't see what happens to him other than we know
Yeah.
he didn't die here. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. He does die in the book, but later killed by vampires. That's kind of how everybody goes out in Salem's Lot.
There is one very major character from the book that we're about to meet who has almost nothing to do here.
Well, so we also get to Barlow attacks Ned in his cell and bites him up pretty good, I guess.
Yep. Bites him up pretty good.
Well, we don't see any of the kind of biting and blood in this thing, but it's bad news. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about because then the Glick mother collapses at home and she says she's tortured by dreams of her son. She dies.
It's like, I'm your baby. Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah.
He comes to me and he said he smiles and he says, "I'm your baby." I'm like, oh God,
I love this scene when we cut to the hospital and Ben is getting out of the hospital and settling up his bill.
Yeah,
I mean, I know that's what happens, but it also just look here I am with my liberal values again, but like you got hurt and you're like, how much do I owe you for fixing me? Just the way it's put together, I thought this is just so weird.
John, when we started this podcast, you promised me you would be apolitical, and I feel I've been lied to.
Yeah, I know. And here I go with my socialist.
I don't really like talking about monster movies with socialists. Yeah. I gotta go.
My socialist values, here they come.
Now you want health care for everybody? Hi, you fucking
especially when we're based on a novel by a guy who's pretty conservative, as we know, obviously. Mm-hmm. Or I don't know, because he never states his political opinions out in the open ever.
Nope.
Yeah, Stephen King wouldn't know what side of the aisle he falls on. Yeah, check out his Twitter account sometime, folks.
I basically for the last 4 years, it has just been 2 words. It's just been fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump,
pretty
fuck Trump.
Much, yeah. He's angry all the time.
And again, I do love that he is in a position and a wealth bracket where he can just basically do that. He can just say that and really won't lose anything.
Mm-mm.
People are still going to be reading his books, and he's just able to say what's on his mind.
Yeah. So I don't know of a lot of. I mean, I'm sure there are some, but like highly conservative people who also love horror fiction. I don't think there's a lot there.
You don't think there's a big crossover in the Venn diagram?
That's why I don't think the Stephen King audience is getting upset about his tweets.
I don't think so too. Plus, his humanistic side is through all of his books, right. And so therefore, as you say, you read any of his books, you're going to know which side the guy's on.
You know, where his last book, the Hitman thing, has a lot of just. That guy is getting ready to murder somebody. He's also watching the news going like, how the fuck did this idiot get elected president? Anyway,
it's so great.
Let me go on this assassination hit, though. Too. It's like, oh, wow.
I'm just going to work it in. This is my life. I'm going to put it in the book.
Yeah, he does that. I mean, you do see that where every once in a while there's just like, well, that's just a King rant that ended up in this novel, isn't it?
Yeah. You can also time when he's writing something. You're like, oh, yeah. I know when this was written.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff in that book, too, which is weird, where he keeps mentioning that, like, of course, this would all change a year later when the coronavirus hit. And you're like, what do I need to know that for?
Yeah. You don't need to make it that grounded in a specific time frame. Come on.
It is just like, it is like he goes, well, it'd be weird if I didn't mention that this would be different after the coronavirus. Like, you don't have to do that, Steve. He said his next novel will face corona head on, so...
Oh my God, I can't wait.
He's gonna
we only have to wait a couple of weeks though. That's how fast the dude is. So
we had one out last month. He'll get one out this month. No. Susan shows up at the hospital and she says that Ned died. Oh yeah, Ned died in the jail cell. And Burke had the heart attack, so he's in the hospital too. And Ben's like, oh shit, I know what's going on. I was laid up for a couple days, and these vampires are running wild in this town. He's like, look, I gotta go destroy. He basically says this. He's like, I gotta go destroy the evil in this town, which is about as cool a thing to say as you leave her. It's like, sorry, honey, I gotta go destroy evil.
One of the reasons this impacted me as a kid too is I mean, Van Helsing, you get the impression with Van Helsing, obviously he's an older gentleman and he spent so much of his life, uh, if not preparing, at least educating himself about these kinds of things. I love the characters that come into it not as an initial believer,
Right.
but then take it on themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why a character like Ben and of course Mark, that was my insert character, obviously, as a kid. I'm like going, they're just taking on the responsibility. It's like high noon. It's like no one's with me on this. I'm gonna have to wipe out the evil in this town. I love that shit.
So they go to see the town priest, Father Callahan, who
That's the character I'm talking about.
Honestly, I would rather they just not include this character because he doesn't do shit in this.
He doesn't, except for that isn't really good. It is a very good scene he's involved with. It's a great creepy scene with Mark and Barlow and Straker and
again, like,
Father Callahan.
Due to, I'm guessing, TV restrictions, you don't see what happens to Callahan.
Yeah.
Which kind of is a bummer because that scene is from the book and it is a good scene, but you're more just like, I guess he got killed there probably.
I just love the fact that, it's like, okay, he's not an iconic Stephen King character, but he's one of the few that actually comes back in the Dark Tower series.
Yeah.
He becomes a fairly integral part of that. And I'm like, I love the continuity. Father Callahan out there still fighting evil.
Absolutely. This is James Gallery is this actor who plays Father Callahan in this.
Very familiar face at the time. Also seen him in a lot of things.
Oh, look at this. He was in the where was this here? He was in the Brady Girls Get Married TV movie. Well, that's interesting. He played Wally's father. Of course, Wally Logan is the one who ends up marrying Marcia in that, played by Jerry Houser.
Holy shit, John. Yeah. I tend to forget that you're not just a passing fan.
Lord,
you know everything there is to know about Brady's.
I do, and not just the original series. I'm talking the reunion movies, the terrible attempts to bring the show back. I've seen all of it. I've seen the Brady Kids animated show. I've seen every episode of the variety show. I'm all in, man.
Listen, this is an aside to our listeners. There is a GoFundMe page for John. We want to get him some help, and he'll take anything. We need to help him with this Brady problem. I have give generously.
The complete box set, which does include what's called the Brady-ist collection. It has all of this stuff in it, not just the show, but all the movies, all it doesn't have the variety show because that was made by a different company. So CBS doesn't own that, but you can find those episodes on YouTube. Believe me, I've watched them, and they are awful. Of course they are.
I've seen at least one.
I've seen I think I only did like 6 or 7. It didn't last long.
I don't think I watched it. I mean, in the time period, I could have. I don't think I did. I don't think my family was a big Brady family. I was just watching the reruns in the afternoons. But at some point later, I think maybe on TV Land or something, I think I saw an episode of the variety show. It is absolutely terrible.
Bad. It's so bad. It's one of those things where it's like, who in the world thought this was a good idea? So anyway, they go to see Father Callahan, and I like that they're like, what's the church's position on vampires? And he's like, well, we've evolved somewhat in the last few. We don't really go in for the whole supernatural stuff as much these days. Is basically his point. And they're like, well, you're no help. But they do get the doctor to agree to help, only because a lot of these bodies of people who died seem to have just gone missing. So we should probably look into that.
This is, again, things really start picking up, as in the disbelief falls away pretty gosh darn fast.
Yeah. Well, and then here's the scene where Mark is telling his parents that he saw Danny Glick as a vampire, and Father Callahan is here, and they're going, this is just because you like all those monster things. You probably dreamed it.
Yep.
But of course, at that exact moment,
our kid's a cuckoo bird.
He's some kind of cuckoo bird.
This suddenly becomes an Exorcist, like Poltergeist movie for a few minutes.
Which is interesting because Tobe Hooper goes on to direct Poltergeist.
Indeed.
Or did he?
We do find out that Barlow apparently has some sort of telekinetic abilities, which is fresh. A hot take on a vampire.
All the windows start smashing out, and everything starts shaking, and the table
is
lifts
vibrating,
up and vibrates, and then Barlow is just. They look over, and there's just the cloaked figure as he. I like this.
This is pretty great because they look over, and your viewpoint is you're looking at what looks like someone has dropped black cloth, like it's like someone had dropped a bed sheet on the kitchen floor. But then it rises up, and I love that shit.
Yeah, it rises up, and it's Barlow.
And he just goes, and then we're seeing him. Yeah, we did see his face in the Ned scene.
Well, we really get a good look at him here.
Yeah, we get a good look at him, and his big old hands with the claws.
This is where, once again, the TV thing, though, comes in. The way he kills the parents of Mark.
Oh, my God, this is awkward.
Pretty lame.
The idea is that he slams the two parents' skulls together, killing them.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
No.
But it's staged like, okay, we're going to put them together slowly.
It's staged like how Adam West would take out a couple of Joker goons by just being like, bonk.
Yep. It's not realistic. And, of course, if it were supposed to be like their deaths, I want to hear a good sound effect. I want to see some blood. Not a lot.
Well, because when Mark's like, oh my God, my parents, they're dead. I went, they are? I mean, I know they are because I've read the book, but also...
are you sure they don't just have bad headaches?
Also, why does Barlow do this? Because the whole thing in the book is Mark has already gone to the Marson house, and I believe he's killed Straker. Mark is the one who kills Straker in the book, and it's Barlow who swears vengeance on Mark. And he even says in the book, because he talks in the book, and I really like this, because it's very Dracula when he goes, no. I'm going to get vengeance on you for this. First, I'm going to kill your family. Then I'm going to kill you. But you're going to watch your family die. I like that from them. Here, he's just like, I got to take these people out next. Like, he just sort of is just like, I guess I'll target them right now. Bam!
There is no reason this happens in the movie other than we got to move this shit along.
Because instead they turn this into then Mark being like, well, now I got to take him out for killing my parents. Yeah, it's the reverse in the book, which I'm like, I mean, it just seems
in this TV movie it's more about well, all bets are off, I'm just on a killing spree.
Is what it seems. He's going
like,
house to house.
Let's not worry about the antique store anymore.
I am also just kind of bummed that it's not Mark at all who kills Straker in this, because I like that the 13-year-old kid takes out the familiar in the book.
Yeah, it is true.
Whereas here it's hunky David Soul, and
you know what? I have a feeling that it may have been David Soul behind the scenes saying, "No, I want to be able to shoot the gun, kill that guy, and stake the vampire.
People love
Mark will be my assistant, dude.
People love when I shoot that gun on Starsky and Hutch, right? Come on.
Yeah, give me that.
He also carried a revolver on Starsky and Hutch, so
there you go.
Yeah.
And killed a few familiars in Starsky and
There
Hutch.
is a vampire episode of Starsky and Hutch. Not a real vampire, but there is a serial killer acting like a vampire. But there is a scene, he's an actor, and there's a scene where they're backstage and they're like, where is he? And he does leap out at them with cape open and I think Starsky shoots him then.
Love it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So they're dead. And then this is the thing with the priest where because Straker has to go everywhere with Barlow because he has to talk for Barlow in this.
That's exactly right, because it is jarring. Not only is it jarring that Barlow has shown up in this house that he has no connection to, killed a couple people, and then he grabs Mark while the priest is like, put him down, and he puts up the cross. Straker it's almost like a laugh-in skit, because he just walks in through the door, is like, oh no, I don't believe that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he's like, what about it? I do love, I mean, again, he's so good. The way he delivers this stuff, where he's like going, shaman. Yeah. He calls him shaman and medicine man. He's demoralizing a man of the cloth. It's kind of great. He's like going, so why don't you test your faith against Mr. Barlow's faith?
Put that cross down and see whose faith is stronger.
Yeah, He's like, if you want to save the life of this worthless boy,
Yeah. Oh, it's good,
will you
man.
do this? And so it's a great dialogue scene, but it does seem weird that Straker's like going, you go in first. Yeah. I'll give you like 2 minutes, do some head bashing.
Yeah.
I'll be right behind you.
I'll make my dramatic entrance at that point. But like I said, the thing is, then we just cut away. We don't see the face-off of Callahan and Straker.
We do see that Callahan gets his hero moment because he says, "Of course I'll do that," and he frees Mark, and Mark does the teary-faced point and goes, "I'm going to kill you."
Yeah,
and then he escapes, and then
and by that I mean I will stand next to a guy who's going to kill you.
And then we see Callahan still standing there, and Straker going, well, you're part of the bargain. Put down the cross. Yeah. And he does. And as you're pointing out, and it's a drag, they do cut away. We don't know how the outcome is.
You want to see, I mean, it's presumed he kills Callahan, of course, because we see, but like, I want to see that shit, man.
Because you are bloodthirsty and you love to see clerical type people die.
Always. No, it's just like, this scene doesn't have the conclusion. It doesn't have, it's just kind of like, oh, I guess he got him then. Like, especially down the stretch. I guess
he's dead?
Especially down the stretch here. There's a lot of like, oh, yeah, no, he got those guys too.
Yeah, there's a lot of that because of the characters that have dropped out left and right.
Yeah. Well, and because Barlow's not a character, you also don't get him and Susan and any of that kind of stuff. Which, they made their decisions. And like I said, like we're saying, this generally works, but there is stuff. That's why I am going like, yeah, go ahead.
If you are familiar with the book, you're just constantly going, okay.
Yeah. That's why like I said, as good as this is, I am going like, yeah, you can go ahead and try it again. I feel like you could probably do it better. With
I'm down for another go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Definitely. So meanwhile, Ben is meanwhile at the Hall of Justice. The Justice League gets involved here. I wish. Ben is making crosses at the morgue by taping tongue depressors together.
Yes, and then blessing them.
Yes, I like that. I like this where it's just like, well, I got what I got around me, so.
What I like most about it is David Soul does a really good job of this scene too, because he's doing all this on the fly, including having to summon his own faith.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that he's reciting the Lord's Prayer and he's stumbling over it. Like there are parts where he backs up. He's like, no, that's not quite right.
Maybe
I'm like, that's a nice touch.
Every individual tiny word, to quote Ash from Army of Darkness.
Yeah. So it's pretty great to have our hero going, he maketh me to lie down between.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I love that.
Also, the whole time he's doing this, he's looking over at the sheet-covered Glick mother's body, like, you gonna turn to a vampire yet?
Well, basically, the doctor did say something like, you got like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and he's
10
doing
minutes
this,
before the sun goes down.
So he's
people
taping the
cross
up together. He's saying the prayer, and he just keeps looking over, and the camera will cut over. He's like, "No, she's not moving yet. Okay, I got it.
Not moving yet. I'm still good. Still good for now."
Okay, yeah, and I just like really once again, Tobe Hooper, very well put together sequence here.
Yep. And you know what? She does rise.
She does rise and comes at him, and man, he puts that thing right on her head, and it's good stuff.
And the effects are pretty good. I mean, the makeup stuff is pretty good.
James Mace says, "Dear, when you were in that vampire makeup, it really got me going."
I just came back from my lunch break. I hope no one notices all this gray paint on my face and on my penis.
Mr. Mason, is that gray paint
James
on your
Mason,
penis?
At his age, having a quickie, a nooner, on his lunch break with his wife in the vampire makeup.
Well, because normally he doesn't have that, but he saw her in this vampire makeup and just went, "Oh,
yeah,
I have to.
He doesn't.
Let's go back to the trailer, dear." I've
always loved you and found you very attractive, but now that I've seen what you look like as an undead corpse woman.
Hey, at my age, a midday boner is nothing to waste.
All I can say is my mizzenmast has risen to quite a degree. I hope no lightning strikes me and turns me into a charred corpse.
I never thought of that as a worry before I shot Frankenstein the true story. But now that I know that's
Interestingly enough, when I
possible...
read that in the script, I did so much research. It happens more often than you'd think.
Oh dear, what's happened? Another charred skeleton found?
I understand that's how John Barrymore went.
I did note it was a closed casket funeral.
Now, true, he was almost 90% alcohol by the time of his death. But it was probably the lightning.
Well, the lightning really lit him up, you know? It was an accelerant.
Oh, God, we are so disrespectful to the dead. Do you ever get the feeling, John, that we might end up getting haunted by some of these great stars of the past?
I hope so. I would love it if James Mason appeared in here. Hello.
All of your little digs, quite amusing. By the way...
No, with our luck, we'd end up haunted by Lon Chaney Jr. He's just like, oh, come on.
And the only way we know it is we keep hearing jingling in our refrigerators. we keep hearing bottles knocked together. Lon, I don't drink.
Hey,
Lon, don't even bother. Don't even bother.
You got no booze. How about you run down to the convenience store, get me a 6-pack?
Lon, all I've got is Mountain Dew. You're not gonna enjoy that.
No, it's just not gonna get me there. Oh, gee.
Oh, anyway.
Yeah.
So they killed the vampires yet? I can't remember.
He burns her with the cross. Let's see. Oh, then they go over to Susan's place where she's hung. What in front of the house? It's not garlic.
Hawthorne.
Yeah, it's not the traditional garlic you expect from a vampire.
No, but Hawthorne.
Also, it's not called out by the movie.
What?
The Hawthorne. It's just it's just something's hanging there, and he's like, "Oh, good."
No. He says it like 3 times in it. You missed it.
All right. Well, then
he actually tells her specifically, "Get Hawthorne." Oh. And when he comes back and sees it's on there, he goes, "Good girl."
Yeah.
Like she's getting a pat on the head.
Yeah, I didn't love that line for him.
Hawthorne is tied into the. I mean, it's part of folklore as well, and I think it's because Hawthorne was the.
Oh wait, they go into this in one of the Hammer movies, maybe, because it's the thing the with Jesus, right?
Yeah, that made the crown of thorns.
Yeah.
On Jesus' head.
I think it is one of the Hammer movies. Christopher Lee gets all tangled up in it. Remember?
Yes. Well, there's also ash, which is the wood. That's supposed to be the wood used for the stake, because that was the wood of the cross.
Yeah. No, this was because he gets all tangled up, and it was not the best way for Dracula to go out tangled up in branches
in thorns.
Yeah, and he's like, ooh.
It looked a little bit like old Bela Lugosi struggling with a rubber octopus.
Yeah, I mean Lee was a great actor, but good luck to anybody selling that.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, you gotta get out of town, Susan. You gotta go.
And she's like, that sounds like an excellent plan. I will take a quick stop by the Marston house.
I wonder if any network execs were like, I don't know, maybe she does get out of town and they live happily ever after.
I bet people were trying to, get the happy ending in there.
That seems such a studio note. To me, I don't know. It just seems like that.
The only thing you could possibly take away, and they stuck to pretty much the novel's guns, but I love the idea of the ongoing. Now, true, our heroes survive.
Yeah.
Though, of course, Susan doesn't. But their life is horrible.
Yeah. But they also keep Susan alive much longer in this than in the book.
They do.
She dies about halfway through the book-ish. So, sort of.
It's a similar thing where she does go to the house and meets Mark there.
What they do is they eliminate, because she dies in that scene where Mark kills Straker. So they eliminate. They make it this is the only time they go. She and Mark go to the Marston house at the midpoint of the book. Where here they make everything in the Marston house the climax.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's fine to simplify that.
Works okay.
Yeah. Because Ben goes to the sheriff's station, and the deputy there is like, yeah, I don't know. Guy never took a day off in his whole life, but he didn't come in today.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know who the sheriff is. Yeah, he took a day off. Weird, huh? And he goes, how are you feeling? He goes, well, tired. Had weird dreams. Everyone in town is being visited by vampires in the night.
Because Susan goes to the boarding house, and Ben's not there, but Eva is, and she talks about her dream of young Weasel.
Weasel.
Just isn't in this at all.
No, he's
not seen in part 2 at all. It was almost like, when she said that, I was like, oh, right, Weasel.
Right, where was he?
Yeah. He probably drank himself to death. I don't know.
On blood.
You sure you don't want me to play this Weasel character? Something about him speaks to me.
I love the idea that was what he was like, this is a fine script, and I know exactly the part you want me for. Weasel. Yes. I see it all.
No,
we're going with Elisha Cook Jr. That hack?
I really feel like...
I suppose I could play, I don't know, Straker.
I just like him going, I could really get method with Weasel, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, we know, because we can smell your breath from here.
Elijah Cook Jr., is he even drunk?
He plays a good drunk, but let me tell you something. I am drunk.
I'm drunk now.
I'm the man you want.
We can, yeah. I always just imagine him leaning too close to people and people being like, whew, Jesus.
I do think about all these famous alcoholic actors, the people who do scenes with them, they have to step back.
Oh,
I mean,
God,
they have to be.
If you were doing a scene with like Richard Harris, Jesus Christ, man.
Good Lord.
Yeah. You're on this, you're at the Royal Shakespeare Company doing like Henry V with fucking Richard Harris, and he just reeks of whiskey, you know.
Oh my God.
Once more into the breach. I love those stories about him and like Burton going and getting tanked between performances, and then just going out and still being perfect on like that. They were just made of different stuff back then.
They put the fun in high functioning alcohol.
They really did. It's just like, that's crazy to me. So
blow winds and crack your cheeks.
So Susan does stop by the Marston house, and she ultimately decides to go in only because she sees Mark already breaking in, and he's armed up with some stakes.
Yep. He's made his vampire killing kit and putting his magic skills to use because he's picking that lock.
Now, something they definitely added, or I've forgotten it from the book, is all this taxidermy stuff in the house.
Yeah, well, that made me laugh because that was just... I mean, the house is a good-looking set, it looks very effectively like a...
Yeah, I really did like the set.
Gone-to-seed old mansion. But then they go fully over the top, and it made me laugh because it made me think of that, which Dracula was it that we watched that?
Oh, God. I think
it's the English shots of the taxidermy animals coming to life.
Wasn't that the Count Dracula with Christopher Lee? Wasn't that the Italian thing?
That may have been Count Dracula.
I think that was back at the start of the season. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
God,
that was
terrible.
Awful. And this is because it starts with Mark is creeping around, and he comes across this desk, and he opens up a drawer, and there's all these eyes in it. And he's like, but they're all just the eyes for then the taxidermy animals, and they're doing these push-ins on them. It's like, And just like, hey, we don't need any
And then
of
they
this.
lean in and they go, scared yet?
Yeah. Because then they kind of repeat it when Susan finds it too, and she's like, just like, Jesus Christ, guys!
Thought this is a go-to, and like, I hate to disagree with them. It's not a go-to.
It's really not, and there's already tension just with them being in the house with vampires. Like, that's enough.
And the sun is going down.
You don't need to push this. Like, we really don't. Let's goose it with some taxidermy animals. I don't know.
Actually, the sun isn't going down. Mark was smart. It is broad daylight. Yeah. He gets tied up, and so that's why he's there when the sun goes down.
Right. It's when Ben shows up.
It's when Ben shows up. He doesn't have too much time to work.
Yeah. And Straker just knocks Mark unconscious and then confronts Susan like, "Yes, hello." And we're like, "Oh no."
Yeah, he does. He just says, "Yes, hello."
Yes. Oh, you seem caught me in a compromising moment. Yes.
Right, and yet I'm scared of him.
Well, the thing I love too is like, there's nothing in this house that makes it seem like a person lives here. But Straker is a human. He needs like a place to sleep, doesn't he?
He's human, but he's awful strong.
Oh, we'll get to that. That I really have a problem with.
Do you? I love it.
It's so silly.
It reminded me of Fright Night.
Yeah.
Where the familiar has some power.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't he? No.
He's kind of, I mean, zombie-like. In other words,
yeah.
he can go out in daylight, but he's super strong, and you can shoot him 18 times and nothing happens.
Yeah, there's something that, yeah. So anyway, Mark wakes up and he's tied to a chair, and he's like, "Where's Susan?" And this is a line they give to Straker that is a Barlow line in the book there, where he's just like, "She's met the man she came here to see."
Yes,
and in the book, it's she wakes up and Barlow's there, and he's like, "Well, I'm the one you've come here to see." So but it's
and she does because again, there's no dialogue for Barlow, so she does the convincing, "I'm hypnotized" acting. I'm drawn to this horrible thing.
Yeah,
good stuff. Good stuff.
So Ben rolls up on the sheriff, who's packed up everything in his family, and is like, "I'm just getting the fuck out of town, man." And Ben's like, "Hey, what about any duty you have to protect the people of this town?" And his big thing is he goes, all right, here you go. Take my gun.
Yeah, he just gives him his gun.
He
no longer is like, I would have loved it if as he drove out of town. It'd be great if he goes, "I'm still looking into you."
I thought he was just going to give him the gun and go, "Here, you're the sheriff now, all right?"
It was almost like that. I also thought of like Blazing Saddles. I thought of the Reverend in Blazing. You're on your own.
Yeah. But he basically is just like, "Hey man, I don't have to explain myself to you, pal."
And I guess he survives this whole story because they get out of town. None of them been bitten.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny that the tubby middle-aged sheriff has a fat wife. It was like, "Oh, they're the fat family. There goes the fat family. Say goodbye, everybody."
That's such old TV kind of thinking, where it's like, if he's a fat guy, he needs a fat wife.
Yep, and they get the hell out of the story.
Because no physically fit woman would marry a paunchy dude.
No,
never happen.
We all know that. That is understood.
That is understood right into the late 90s, early 2000s, when every sitcom had that premise.
Yeah.
Kevin James landed Leah Remini somehow. I don't understand.
That just doesn't make any sense, no.
but
we're all still struggling with that.
That was like the whole advertisement where you're just like, well, I gotta watch to even understand how this happened. And then there are like 10 seasons of that show. So.
I watched the whole show and they never really answered it.
Why did she like that big fat guy? I don't get it. But
does he have hypnotic powers?
But she's so attractive. This makes no sense to me. Better keep watching.
It is true, by the way. Crush. I've had a big crush on Leah Remini.
Yeah. I gotta say, I
even while she was with the Church of Scientology.
I gotta say though, I honestly find her more attractive in her crusade against it. But that may just speak to my own thing.
That's amazing.
There's just something about her just being like, "Fuck you," to the Church of Scientology that I'm like, that's my kind of lady right
the
there.
Big target on her back, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. She's a cool lady.
So
let's see. Ben then runs to the doctor. He lets Susan's missing somehow. Well, let's head over to the Marston house, because that's probably where she is. So the doctor and Ben get to the Marston house just as Mark is running out of it, and, and they're like, "All right, we got to go inside and check out what's going on in there." Ben tries to send Mark home, but he's like, "No, I'm part of this now. We gotta."
Oh yeah, we did skip over the fact that when Ben was tied up, we got to watch him start to do Houdini tricks to try to get out of this.
That is the only purpose of that way too long handcuff escaping bit, though.
Yep, it was to show that hey, he's got escape artist tricks.
The only thing that doesn't work about that there is, that those are pre-rigged in a lot of ways. It's not like you can just escape from anything by doing that. But
whoa, you're not. We'll cut this. You're not really supposed to be revealing those kinds of secrets.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. I don't want you getting in trouble with the Guild of Magicians.
We demand to be taken seriously. One of my favorite. I love that the sign for the Magic Alliance on the rest of it. We demand to be taken seriously.
Oh, Tony Wonder. Is that his name?
Yeah, Tony Wonder. Did somebody say Wonder?
God damn it! How long have you been in that dumbwaiter? He's got wilted lettuce on it.
There's a piece of lettuce on your shoulder. I love it. And he's always just making stuff come out of his body.
Yeah.
Enjoy the Hanukkah cookie, man.
There he goes. Here's a Hanukkah cookie.
And I love it.
It doesn't take... I mean, I think I would be surprised if we've done one podcast of our history without mentioning Arrested Development.
It's such a keystone.
I think it's the most common one we go to.
It is such a influential show on me. But still,
just one of the funniest things ever.
But still, where did the lighter fluid come from?
Dear God.
Yeah. So they go into the house. They're looking around. Yeah. Okay. So the Dr. Norton goes upstairs, and yeah, Straker just lifts him straight up like he weighs nothing.
Yeah. Full body presses him, and walks him down the hallway.
When this happened, and he just picked it up, I went, what now?
Oh, I'm fine with it.
I don't know. It's something about particularly frail old James Mason doing it. Where he's like,
that's what makes it
up you go.
Awesome.
Now this is a change from the book because he impales him on this wall. It almost feels like the taxidermy is only here to do this.
It does seem like that because, I mean, not that I've ever been a hunter, but do you really just do an entire wall that's nothing but antlers that aren't even attached to like the taxidermied head? Just a wall of antlers.
It feels like it's only here for impaling. Now in the book, and they do a little bit of this, which is the sawed-off stairs down in the basement.
Yeah.
The book, Dr. Cody starts to go down those stairs and falls to where Straker has set up just a bunch of like kitchen knives, like a bed of knives, which is pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, I'm still happy the Doctor's impaled. I like that. I just like the idea that Toby Hooper's like, we will impale this Doctor no matter what. We'll find a way to do it.
I of course, I do like the scene, but even better is when it realizes that the host body is dead. When the hairpiece lifts off,
and then it scurries across the ground,
the Doctor's head. Yeah, and it tries to attack Straker. I thought that was good use.
I still have my natural hair, good man.
Point Straker.
Yeah. James Mason's lost a lot of things in his life, but hair was never one of them.
All mine. Jealous?
Jealous, Ed?
he all the scenes he has with the Doctor is him flipping his head around so his hair moves. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did that get in the way? Is the camera picking that up? All that movement?"
Ed, would you care to help me run lines for this luxurious shampoo commercial I'm going?
It gives me that certain elderly man bounce that everyone wants.
You know what I'm talking about, Ed, right? With your totally natural hair.
You know that it's not, James, and that's that's
a low really?
Low blow, James.
Because
low
that
blow.
toupee of yours was so convincing.
That's enough. I'm walking. No, come back. Let me touch it.
James Mason taunting
being a real asshole. Yes, I only have a few years left to live, but at least I'll live with natural, flowing, deliciously real hair.
That's right. When I go, Ed, I'm taking this all with me.
I could donate it perhaps to someone not as gifted, but I will not. This goes in the box, Ed. This goes in the box.
In fact, I have my wife burn any loose hairs that fall out during the day, just to make sure no one gets their hands on them.
A forensic scientist would be lucky to find even a single strand.
Toby Hooper's
This is terrible. All right, moving on.
one of the silliest
so
episodes
mean.
of this show.
So mean.
The doctor's
Ed Flanders, by the way,
Yeah.
also a great actor.
Oh, yeah.
Not just TV, he's just really good.
He's
and
really
he was
good.
great in St. Elsewhere.
Oh,
I'm just really
fantastic in
glad
St.
he
Elsewhere.
acknowledged his hairlessness.
No, and I think he got better at acting as a result of it. He was like freed from that. Once he wasn't holding that back anymore, that he was bald, and he was just openly bald.
Once he realized he wasn't going to be getting all those cool swinging single guy roles anymore, it was good.
Yes, Ed Flanders reading for the part of Han Solo.
I'm Ed Flanders, reading for the role of Mr. Goodbar and Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
It came to Love Story came down to him and Ryan O'Neal, man, right there. It's a hell of a choice. They both did screen tests with Ally McGraw. Could have gone either way. There was too much heat between her and Flanders. That was the problem.
Too much heat between her and Flanders. Okay, all right. So there are vampires. We should talk about those vampires because this is our longest podcast yet. We're in our 4th hour.
It does feel that way. I don't think it actually is, but it does feel like this has been going on a while. It's like 8 hours altogether, both parts of Salem's Lot. The Straker starts coming down the stairs at Ben and Mark, and Ben just opens up on this guy, empties this gun into him, and he's got like a piece of furniture, like a leg off of a table that he's coming to beat them with?
He's just got this big club that looks like it was probably a table leg. And they had made a purposeful, I think he was talking to the doctor earlier where he's like going, so Barlow's the vampire. He's like, yeah. He goes, what about Straker? And he goes, no, Straker is just his front man. Totally mortal. Anything can kill him. Like they really made a point of Ben saying that.
Yeah.
And then they cut to this thing, and we've already seen him lift the doctor and put him on the wall. And then he comes down the stairs, and Ben empties that gun into him, and he's still coming. It does get him. It just took a while.
Yeah, this is one of those two where, once again, unfortunately, the TV restrictions at the time here really could have used some squibs on this one. Like
we needed squibs.
This would have been so much more effective if we saw the bullets hitting him. Because at this point, you could almost go like, "What is he missing?" Like I don't know. I don't know where those bullets are landing. I mean, you assume it looks like because he does full on go into his police trained hutch like shooting stance.
He really at this point. I mean, it's probably just second nature to him, but it does look like 70s cop show stand.
He's got the feet
blam,
got the feet wide apart and planted, both arms stretched out on both hands on the and
and you're thinking, man, did Ben have some sort of gun training earlier in his life? What's this about?
I thought it was really weird when the car from Starsky and Hutch sped up next to the house with Paul Michael Glaser going, "Let's roll, buddy."
I would love it if there had been a really heavy-handed wink to his TV cop role. I mean, I'm glad there wasn't.
I mean, what if there was one of those classic things where he's walking down the street and he bumps shoulders with Paul Michael Glaser, and they look at each other and go, "No."
Or the car we don't even see who's driving it, but it goes down the street of Salem's Lot, and he just turns and looks at it and goes, "Huh."
Or
keeps going.
He does a laugh like Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop when the guys walk by in his stand-up outfits. He's like, I made mistakes.
You know, that sounded more like Dr. Hibbert when I did it, and I apologize.
Straker dies, though, coming down the stairs, even though he takes 6 rounds and keeps walking for a little bit, but then he's like, oh, no, never mind.
He didn't get any dying dialogue. I actually thought there would be at least one more or something, but no.
No, instead they cut to this weird shot where his hand grabs onto the railing of the stairs.
It is a weird shot.
And I thought, what is he reaching for? What is this? What's he doing?
It seems okay, and it only popped into my head because they had shown this earlier. Is that was it Ben or the doctor touches the railing of the staircase when he's going up and takes his hand away and is like, ugh, what's this on my hand? So they had done that, and that was fine. You don't think of that. Then they cut to this, and when he's dying, he's reaching out for the same kind, like the rails of the staircase, as if it's like, must touch the life-giving ooze.
We covered this place in ooze that heals wounds.
It's just a weird staging, but yeah, he dies kind of in mid-grasp, lying on the stairs.
Toby, I did have a couple suggestions for a final line for Straker. No, I don't have any of those, but I just like
this one was okay. Here I am, I'm dying. Yeah. We see that the doctor is still hanging on. He's on the antlers. And I look up at him and I say, I'm sorry, is there something, is my hair out of whack? I'm sorry, can you not see me from, should I flip this back? I just want you to be able to see my eyes through all this hair. Can we put that in?
Yeah. Is that, you know what, how about we shoot both options and you can decide in editing.
Flanders left. He actually just left. He's had enough of your shit.
Oh, but still, imagine how he'll react when he sees it on TV.
Let's go ahead and film it and put it on the rap reel. He'll love it.
You know,
he'll love it.
It'll be a little gag for all of us. Flanders will lose it. I like that we've just manufactured tension between these two actors.
Yeah, Ed Flanders and our good friend Mr. Mason. And it's all a war over hair.
Yeah. So then Mark goes down to the basement. He falls off these sawed-off stairs into the basement. No blades or anything, though, to avoid.
No, shame.
And then Ben just leaps down once he sees that Mark is down there. And I couldn't not think of Anchorman with like I immediately regret this decision. Like, it's just like, well, now we're both trapped down here. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they start poking
Milk
around.
Was a bad idea.
Oh, such a great movie. They start poking around and they find this hidden compartment, which is where Barlow's coffin is. And I do like this shot with a coffin, and then it's just surrounded by like people in mid-vampire turn, just being like, yeah. It's good stuff.
They've joined their master. They're just hanging out.
Yeah.
But they grab the coffin, and Ben actually does a very decent job for most of it, just pulling it out of the root cellar.
Yeah.
And then he finally does say, "Mark, give me a hand, would you?"
Yeah.
I'm like, you seem to be handling that pretty good. That's a heavy wooden coffin with a vampire in it.
Just grab the other end of this, you lazy little bastard. Come on.
I had to kill Straker. I guess I'll have to kill Barlow too.
You have contributed nothing, Mark. Yeah, so they open up the coffin, and they do make the point of, oh no, the sun's going down. We don't have much time. So they open up the coffin, and just as they do, you actually talk about this. They open up the coffin. Barlow wakes up and his eyes pop open. And Ben really pushes Mark across the room. He goes flying.
Yeah, he really does.
He's like, don't look at him.
Yeah, he's like, don't look at him.
Which I get. He doesn't want him to be
really
hypnotized.
Shown that he was being, hypnotized. It's like, Ben, I appreciate your caution.
But like a simple Indiana Jones, close your eyes, would have done it, or something like that. Or
yeah, he shoves him fully across the room and into the wall where the opening into the root cellar is.
Like
he slumps down.
You see him get pushed, hit the wall, and then like fall back from having hit the wall onto the ground. You're like, Jesus Christ, soul!
Yeah,
get out of your mind. I'm gonna send this kid
flying. It's a tasteless joke, but apparently that's exactly what his wife used to go through quite a bit. Oh, David Soul.
Yeah.
Complicated life with the women and the alcohol.
I gather he was the more troubled of the two on Starsky and Hutch.
Yes, though Paul Michael Glaser had a lot of family tragedies, they were not his doing.
Right.
And David Soul, unfortunately, had his demons.
Yeah, that's the nicest way to say it.
There we go.
I know a thing or two about demons. You can stay out of this, James Mason. But he does start to stake Barlow, but I like that there's kind of a struggle where it's in but not fully in, and Barlow's kind of fighting him, and it's like, ah.
I like the staking scene because for one thing, it is that, and it's also not too quick.
Right.
A big problem I always have is in a lot of these movies, they make it look like it's not so hard to do. In this thing, it's not just that there's a struggle. Once he starts pounding it in, it's not instantaneous. He's working on it, and it goes on. It doesn't go over long, but it goes long enough to you're like going, right. It would not just be a boom, boom, done. We're out.
Right, yeah. Because, we've definitely seen, so Cushing had some of those where it's like, bang, bang, and we're done.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
A classic Peter Cushing. High five. So
don't leave me hanging.
Yeah, and then we do get the close up of Barlow wasting away and becoming a skeleton, not a blackened one, just a regular skeleton. And we do get that shot that we mentioned earlier of where Mark is sitting there and we see the vampires creeping. You're like, Mark, turn around, there's vampires creeping towards you. And he does, and I like him just being like, no, and closes the door on them.
Yeah, no. I love the look on their faces. They're like, oh man,
I want to eat that kid.
Hold on, man, damn,
man, he looked tasty.
And then they pretty quickly once Barlow is, and it's a pretty good dissolving into a skeleton thing. Yeah. Then they're like, well, we just got to set the whole fucking place on fire.
Yeah, they burn the house, and Mark's like, "Will that take care of them?" But Ben says, "Well, it'll probably they won't be able to stay here, so we'll sort of drive them to the surface, and then."
He's like, "This will scorch the earth, and it will not be hospitable to them to stay in Salem's Lot."
But he's like, "Make no mistake, the vampires will come for us someday."
Yeah,
and then we're back to Guatemala where we started in part 1. We get the holy water scene again, where they filled up on the holy water, and we see them go back to their shack they're staying in.
Yeah, it's really not. They're not doing too well, man.
No. And there's Susan, and she's in bordering on Hammer nightgown.
Still
she's TV
what's interesting about it is, I mean, he does. Once they're out of the house and the house is on fire, he does go, Susan. Yeah. But they didn't make too much of a... Once she was abducted, we didn't really see anything. She gets the hypnotism thing and da-da-da. But the end of it, they're like, and then we're in Guatemala. We've had no idea. I mean,
It's 2 years later, too.
Yeah. So we're thinking, okay, maybe she burned up with them.
Yeah.
But no.
What I was gonna say is this is a change from the book, because when they go into Straker's house, there's a point where very dramatic moment where Ben has to stake her in the house. But here they do this, which I don't mind the scene at all, where she's like, "No, Ben, I found you. It
took me so long. I found you, and now we can be together forever, young. We'll be young forever."
And it seems like, oh no, he's gonna lean in so she can bite him, but of course he's also raising a stake.
It's very well shot, Toby.
Well shot, yeah.
What an awesome thing. But she is just lying there. It's a different vampire seduction thing, because she's like in the hammock thing, and her eyes are closed even while she's talking to him, and we know it's because we're gonna get the spooky opening of the eyes, and there's the glowing pupils and the fangs.
She does not have the ashen gray skin though.
No, she doesn't. She looks pretty good.
Well, that's the thing, obviously. But that doesn't really follow their vampire logic, but it needs to for what they want to do with this scene. So, we're all
But it is well done that he does lean in, like, and you can see it. It's like he's longing. He knows she's turned, but it's still like it's tempting.
Yeah.
But as he leans in, you do out of the corner, because he frames it really well. Out of the corner, you see his arm lift, and he's got the stake in his arm, and he brings it down. And even though it is out of order like it is in the novel, it's still played very well, because his grief at doing it, and again, it's not a quick one either, and there's good dying sounds from her, and it's all gross, and you're like, and you don't see anything.
Nope.
It's not gory. It's just the suggestion of everything it's painful and it's sad.
Exactly. And then what do? We go to our last shot when we pan up to the full moon, and a random skeleton face appears on it.
Well, actually, he does walk out of the room, and Mark is there, and it's a whole thing of these two weary people. He goes, "That was Susan." I was like, "Yeah, took care of it." He's like,
right.
"Yeah, we got to move on." And then you're like, "That's a perfect time to end it. End it right there." No. Camera zooms up.
Because when it panned to the moon, I thought, that's weird. But then when the skull appeared on the moon, I was like, all right, come on now. Are you kidding me?
They did a overlay of a skull on the moon for a few frames, and you're like, that's so stupid.
Oh, it's so spooky.
And the bad score is playing, and then they do the choppy credits again.
Yeah, bad. Unfortunately, leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth after this otherwise really pretty solid vampire film.
Yep.
So overall, we recommend people check out Salem's Lot, though we primarily recommend the novel, as we've said before. Like, read the novel, and then if you want to watch this, and King actually has spoken well of this adaptation, acknowledging the changes, but saying this is one of the ones he likes.
And, also, of course, acknowledging the limitations. Yeah. It's just that, just like you pointed out at the beginning, it is something you always have to say about it, taking into account the time, the format as in network television, taking into account censorship. That's why this is amazing. It's amazing it's this good.
Well, and
taking all
that's kind of the problem in some ways, though, too, right? Because I'll be enjoying it, and then something will happen. I go, oh, right, it is a network TV thing. But like there are stretches of it where you go like, wow, this just feels like a theatrical movie. It doesn't feel like it. And then something will happen. You're just like, oh, right, yeah, it's a TV.
Right, yeah, it does. It yanks you back a little from your enjoyment. You're like, oh no, why? And you shake your fist.
Yeah, exactly. Salem's Lot, that it's one of the better ones we've watched this season, no question.
Right at the end.
Because next week is the season finale for season 3 of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. And we end, as we began the season, with Dracula.
The first, the best. And when I say first, of course, he's not really Frankenstein. The book was written before. All right, anyway.
But we are watching
Dracula's my #1 fave.
1979's Dracula, directed by John Badham and starring Frank Langella as the Count.
Yes.
Been quite a while since I've seen this one. And I remember enjoying it for the most part when I did the one time I saw it before. I like Langella in general. I love Laurence Olivier.
Oh, he's great. And the cast Pleasance is great. Kate Nelligan's great. I mean, all these people are great, but I remember having serious problems with it, and it's a little slowly paced in my memory. I haven't watched it
that could easily
20
be the
years.
Case. Yeah, I haven't watched it in quite a while either. I remember that it was once again. I remember just going like, "Wow, this cast! I got to see this version."
And it's very 70s. I mean, like we've said before, they leaned into a particular take on Dracula, and it was, "I am the sexiest vampire alive."
Yeah. Well, Langella's hair is so 70s.
It's a coif.
It is a coif indeed. So,
ladies and gentlemen, whatever you identify as, ladies and gentlemen, and whatever you identify as, tune in next week
for the
unbutton your shirt down to your navel, because it's 1979 and Dracula is ready to disco.
I do recall we see a bit of Langella chest in it.
We do, and it is the world's biggest collar.
Yeah.
I sit there going, it's 1890 what? No, he's ready for the disco. So we will be checking out, and I remember it being beautifully shot, though. We will.
Badham's a good director. He's coming off of Saturday Night Fever at this point too.
I am interested to see how we go out of the 70s.
Yeah.
And especially since I haven't seen this in so long. I'm looking forward to it.
The thing I will say that my prediction is, whatever faults we may find in it, it will still probably be in the upper tier of movies, because
comparatively, absolutely.
Yeah, it's got a good director and a good cast, and it's going to be watchable.
We can't expect it to be a Scream Blackula Scream, but it will be in sort of a top tier, I think.
Yes, indeed. Join us next week for the thrilling season finale of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. And by thrilling, I mean it will turn from 1979 to 1980 between episodes. But
there you go.
But yes, we'll be talking about Dracula next week. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
Or as you might call them, Ed Flanders' hairpiece.